Together, we will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, my friends, it's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Hope you guys are having a lovely day. I've got a banger of a show for you. I want to give a big shout out, first of all, to my gal from the West Coast, Esther G13 with the fleet. Thank you. Thank you, my friend. Always having glitches buying on Ko-Fi. I'm sorry about that. But she says, I love and appreciate you and Lisa. I hope she lets you grow the mullet. Love to all the Red Pill fam. Continue to tell Lisa in the chat that she really should let me grow the mullet. Wait till you guys see my mustache today. I trimmed my beard way shorter than I intended, so I just went with it. Filter Dog, also, ICE SRT. Yes, the SRT unit has been deployed to Delaney in New Jersey. We're going to talk about that. Thank you for that, homie. Also, thanking my brother Bill from another mother, #1 Indiana dad. Please check my email sent at 12:35 p.m. today about mail-in voting EO temporary win. I actually spoke about it yesterday, unless there is some new development that I'm not aware of. But yeah, we spoke about that yesterday. Let's see. Yeah, definitely talk about it yesterday, but that's okay. I know you can't be here at every show. All right, guys, listen. There's a lot going on. We're going to get into all of it. Also, a good friend of mine who watches the show, Captain Sledge, he's been worried about Alpha Gal recently because I was talking about it on Baseless Conspiracies the other night. We actually have an announcement from RFK and the HHS on Alpha Gal. So do me a favor. Hit that like button. Help us out by sharing. Sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn because we're going to be right back after this. Recently, the U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. This isn't just government spending, it's a declaration of intent because America needs uranium, domestic uranium, and it needs it now. So here's the reality. The U.S. consumes over 50 million pounds of uranium every single year, but we produce less than 1 million pounds domestically. Obviously, that leaves America 98% dependent on foreign suppliers for our supply. It's a critical vulnerability for national security, power generation, and advanced weapons systems. With Russia controlling much of the global enrichment capacity and escalating tensions in Iran threatening nuclear supply, the stakes could not be higher, which is why the White House has made it crystal clear. America must develop its own supply chain. And this is where Kirkstone Metals comes in. They trade under KSM in Canada and KSMCF in the US. They've got decades of uranium and junior mining expertise, and Kirkstone's leadership team knows how to turn exploration projects into real value. But the question is, can they do it again? Kirkstone controls two 100% owned uranium projects strategically located in the Athabasca Basin. This is the richest uranium district on the planet. Same area, same world-class neighborhood, and at their flagship Key Lake project, drilling has already hit high-grade uranium right near the surface, but the team truly believes the real prize lies deep underground. So using a playbook based on the decade's biggest discoveries, they're hunting the massive source below. So let's talk about the Athabasca Basin. It's home to multi-billion-dollar names like NextGen Energy and Denison Mines, but the real upside, it's often the junior explorers that are operating right next door. The Athabasca Basin has delivered over 20% of the world's uranium discoveries, with an estimated $200 to $300 billion worth of uranium identified in the ground, and yet Kirkstone is still sitting at a market cap below $12 million. That's an enormous disconnect between what's found in this district and how some companies are valued today. On January 14th, the U.S. administration reinforced their commitment to domestic energy security, invoking Section 232 via an executive order. It's a formal declaration of resource independence, and it goes beyond support. It's a mandate. Energy security is now national security, and the U.S. government is deploying its full fiscal and regulatory tools to secure the nuclear fuel cycle in North America. Kirkstone Metals, trading as KSMCF in the U.S. and KSM in Canada, is strategically positioned to capitalize on this shift. Now, uranium prices have surged, and some analysts project prices could exceed $100 per pound by 2026 as demand outpaces supply. Federal momentum has already begun to translate into dollars on the ground, including billions in planned funding for domestic uranium enrichment capacity. The sector is entering one of its most active drilling seasons in years, and with its flagship drill program approved, Kirkstone has exploration underway, and they're advancing with a focus on execution. Some companies operating in the district are valued at over $10 billion, and with the U.S. pushing for domestic uranium, Kirkstone could potentially become a leading beneficiary of the reshoring mandate. So if you want to learn more about this critical mineral story and about a team that has delivered big results in the past, check out the link in the description. And a very special thanks to Kirkstone Metals for making today's video possible. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you're having a lovely day. As you can see, I accidentally trimmed the beard down a little bit more than I intended to. I don't think it looks that bad. It looks rather smart. I feel like I should be carrying a badge and asking about the I don't know, the surveillance network that we've got going on the gangs in LA. So either way, guys, we do have a good show for you today, and it's always peppered a couple of steps forward, couple of steps back, but ultimately I think that you can't fix anything unless you expose it. And that's definitely going to be a theme today. So please get ready for a very wild ride. And let's go ahead and just start off with RFK Jr.'s announcement about AlphaGal. Now, if you do not watch the shows that I do on Badlands, over the last 2 weeks, John and I just did a two-part series on a conspiracy related to ticks, on baseless conspiracies. And the subject of AlphaGal had to come up in terms of conversations about ticks and Lone Star ticks in particular. The really ironic twist here is that the night that I did the second part, I took the dogs for a walk just right before. Oh, no, actually, it was the night before. I took the dogs for a walk. I came back in. I didn't walk through long grass. I didn't touch any organic matter. The dogs definitely did walk on people's yards and stuff. But when I got into the bedroom, I put my pajamas on. I mean, I like changed my whole outfit. And then I lay in bed, and Lisa and I'm holding her. We're watching something. She's showing me something on her phone. And I feel something on my arm. And I reach over and I touch it. And sure as shit,
Make America great again.
it was a Lone Star tick. I had a freaking Lone Star tick on my arm. Now, I didn't get bit. He was just crawling around. I think he was making his way up to my armpit because, you know, they like to go where it's nice and warm. And, of course, in my armpit, on my bed, in the middle of the night, that's going to be a great place for him to go ahead and latch on and drink my blood. Now, a well-meaning viewer in the chat also said, you know, Zach, why are you fear-mongering about ticks? I want to be very clear. I'm not fear-mongering about the ticks. I'm not telling people that they shouldn't go outside or that if you get bit by a Lone Star tick or you get bit by any tick, you're automatically going to get sick. I know that's not how it works, and I don't want people to be afraid like that. Now, Captain Sledge, when he sent me an email, seemed like he was a little freaked out about AlphaGal, specifically because people in his region are getting diagnosed with AlphaGal at a pretty alarming rate. I've seen people kind of speculating about possible cures for alpha-gal syndrome, but as it stands right now, there is nothing that I know of for certain that will actually fix alpha-gal. And that sucks because you get one bite from a tick and you might end up not able to eat red meat, or even worse than that, any products that are even related to meat. That includes dairy. So that like totally washes out cheeses. You can't eat gelatin. You have a really, really virulent anaphylactic reaction to it. Thank you so much to Eleanor 2000, who said, Zach, I appreciate all the great news and need to hear your wonderful laugh throughout the week. Though I thought I tried donating on Ko-Fi today. I really do appreciate it. You can see that the goal is now up to 10% out of that 100%, and she dropped $20 on Ko-Fi. I appreciate you. All right, now, part of the conspiracy about ticks and alpha-gal is the fact that Pfizer is about to come out with a vaccine for Lyme disease. So a lot of people have been reporting that they're finding ticks on their property, or that boxes of ticks are being dropped from the sky. I've definitely seemed to see reports of people having upticks of ticks on their properties or ticks when they go outside. Now, I forgot to bring it with me, but I've got a really great natural spray. I don't like to use pesticides. I don't like to use chemicals, but ticks are totally, they're adverse to certain natural essential oils. And the product that I have is called from Yaya Organics. I think it's called Tick Ban or Tick Gone or something like that. It smells great. It definitely doesn't smell like chemicals. I mean, it smells kind of spicy and kind of minty. And so I put that on the dogs before I go out. I didn't put it on the other night, and that was my fault. But I put it on myself. I put it on the dogs before I go out. And I just don't worry about it, you know? I mean, like, you know, if God is going to have me get bit by a tick and struck down by alpha-gal or Lyme disease, then heck, you know? I mean, like, that's the way the cookie crumbles. But I'm going to do everything I can to try to make sure that that doesn't happen along the way. So I was excited today to see that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says that they are 100% working on a cure for alpha-gal syndrome. So let's go ahead and take a listen to what he said at the announcement.
One of the tick-borne disease besides Lyme that is of great concern to the American people, an increasing concern, is alpha-gal. And alpha-gal, which is another science fiction nightmare. You get one bite from a Lone Star tick, and you could have a lifetime allergy to red meat. And I was surprised to learn on my trip to visit the Wampanoag for the Indian Health Services this fall that 50% of the population of Martha's Vineyard now has alpha-gal.
Whoa.
Including most members of the tribe. And so by controlling the breeding on the deer, we also can control alpha-gal as well. We're also working on medicines that can prevent alpha-gal and that have the potential, the promise of actually curing it. And one of those medicines is almost ready. We're fast-tracking it. And then we're doing the studies over the next 2 years to see if we can actually reverse this devastating disease.
All right. Now, I see J.D. Irish says work on chemtrails first. Listen, J.D., there are enough departments and there are enough people in the federal government for people like RFK and those working under him to work on more than one thing at a time. They've already announced that they actually are working on chemtrails. Not only are they investigating, but they're seeking to stop them altogether. Now, I believe that the federal government is no longer out there spraying, but I think the problem that we are dealing with now is private organizations who are doing it clandestinely. So, you know, just because they are not telling you 24 hours a day that they're working on one thing, it doesn't mean they're not actually working on it. They are totally capable of doing more than one thing at a time, farting and chewing gum at the same time, if you will. So make no mistake, just because they're announcing a specific effort to try to control alpha-gal or to cure alpha-gal doesn't mean they're not also working on a whole bunch of other things that are making Americans sick. They definitely are. So I just thought that that would be good to let people know that this is definitely on their radar. Crazy to me that 50% of Martha's Vineyard has got alpha-gal because, you know, one of the aspects of the conspiracy was that a scientist from the World Health Organization and then a number of other left-wing academics had suggested infecting Americans with alpha-gal so that they would then become allergic to red meat, so then we would stop eating red meat and we could solve climate change. We could stop carbon. But that's totally gay and ridiculous. And obviously, there's a lot bigger problems out there than the fake Green New Deal scam. So anyways, I just wanted to make sure people were aware and let you know that there are mitigating factors that you can engage in your own life to try to make it less likely that you're going to get bit by a tick. And you should probably do those things if you live in an area with ticks. Now, the Lone Star tick was actually spread, ironically enough, by the Central Intelligence Agency, dating back to, I believe, like the late 70s, early 80s. They dropped a whole bunch of them in Northern Virginia where they did not naturally occur, and they radiated them so that they could see where these radiated ticks were going to all around the United States. And because they're so strong and they're so aggressive, they latched onto everything, and then they spread up and down the East Coast. So now they're all the way north, and now they're all the way south down here in Florida. So those sons of bitches at the CIA, wouldn't you know it? All right, now, moving on to the next story. This is a follow-up to the story we told yesterday about data centers. Yesterday, we had a story about a neighborhood that was essentially scared by the local government into removing their anti-data center signs by being told that they didn't get building permits, which is just completely ridiculous. This was an affront to the First Amendment of the United States, a violation of their civil liberties. That city, those people in that neighborhood, they are going to continue fighting. But here in Oregon, we have another small community who came together and stopped a data center from being built. And because of the pressure they put on their local city council, they were successful, and they were able to stop it from taking place. Let's take a listen.
Last, to conclude this matter, determined the purchase and sale is closed.
A big wave of relief from a very passionate crowd after the La Pine City Council decides not to move forward with a proposed data center. That vote unanimous and came after residents voiced strong and often fiery opposition to the proposed project. Good evening, and thanks for joining us tonight at 11. I'm Molly Hendrickson. That city council vote came after hours of public comment. It was a packed house at the La Pine Senior Center tonight. The proposal called for a 20-megawatt data center on Reed Road east of Highway 97 in La Pine. The proposal has fueled outrage among many in the community. Tonight, many residents raised concerns about energy use, water, noise, and whether the project would really benefit the community. Residents were relieved their voices were heard.
I feel really proud of my new community. I feel really proud that we've had this many people show up. Apparently we had a lot of people show up at the last meeting and they decided they needed a bigger space, and so we showed up.
When our community showed up like this, we heard them and we knew what we had felt in our gut all along was the right choice for our community, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
City leaders also questioned discrepancies in projected revenue, energy costs, and the number of permanent jobs the data center would create.
All right. Now, Susan Boosin also says tea tree, wintergreen, pine, cinnamon, citrus, eucalyptus, peppermint, clove, and ylang-ylang essential oils are toxic to dogs. Just be careful using EOs on dogs or even diffusing them. So the product that I got was specifically formulated for both people and dogs, which is why I recommended it, because obviously it was important to me. I wanted to make sure. And what you're saying there, Susan, is something that I think everybody here in the chat who is a viewer of my program and who is a critical thinker, this should be something that is always on your mind. If you hear something that is given to you as a piece of advice from anyone, you should always do your own research. You should look into it, because the circumstances under which you live and the circumstances under which they live may be drastically different. What's best for one person may not necessarily be best for you. So definitely do your research, check it out. The product that I got specifically, you don't rub it onto the dog's skin. You just spray their fur. You do the same thing with yourself, and the application is good for 8 to 10 hours. Tricia says, I live in the country. I have had ticks up and down me from my porch roof. They've been a problem as long as I can remember. Mother used to bathe in Pine Sol after a trip up here. So yes, ticks have been around forever. The problem is that the bacteria that causes Lyme disease has not been around for forever, at least not in the current form in which it was created to give people Lyme disease. That didn't first get identified up until 1975, and even then they thought that it was juvenile arthritis, and then it was really the early 80s when they first were actually able to isolate the specific bacterium that was causing it. There are, I believe, 4 different tick-borne illnesses that you can get from getting bitten by ticks. Not all ticks are going to make you sick. The Lone Star tick is what you will specifically get alpha-gal from. I don't think that the Lone Star ticks are actually in Texas. So if you can actually find a map of their spread. I showed it the other night. But that will give you an idea of where you even need to be concerned about. And again, even then, I don't want people to stop going outside. That may be one of the things that they want us to do. They don't want us to go outside. They don't want us to go get back in touch and commune with nature. They want us to be afraid of things all the time. Well, you know, I'm here to tell you, every single day you get out of bed and there's 1,000 different things that might hurt you or kill you from the moment you set your foot down on the ground. So don't allow yourself to stop living. Wanted to make sure you guys saw this because a lot of people are very concerned about the presence of data centers in their communities. This should show you that it is entirely possible for a community to come together and stop something like this from being put into place. All right, now this next story is pretty dark. I'm not going to lie. It is something that we've actually talked about before. This particular story, there have been a couple of updates to it since the last time we spoke about Shoshana Strock. She was a young woman from Israel. She was the daughter of an Israeli minister, and she came out, she testified before the Knesset, and she did a number of interviews detailing the ritualistic sexual abuse that she endured at the hands of her father and many other important political leaders in Israel, as well as Jewish religious leaders. We're talking rabbis, the whole gamut. Pretty much the exact same type of people that are molesting kids on a mass factory scale here in the United States. They're also doing it in Israel. That should surprise none of you. I gotta take my ashwagandha. All right, so let's go through this first. I want to talk about her claims. Now, they're not even claims. I mean, this is what happened to her because it's also been reported by a lot of other people inside Israel. And it's also been reported in many other countries where you have these isolated Jewish enclaves. This apparently appears to be part of the ritualistic and religious practices of certain sects of Judaism, just like it is, you know, when you get into certain sects of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So you've got certain isolated cults which preach and practice the act of sexual congress between children and adults. The only thing is that it is far darker and more disturbing when we're looking at this particular case here. So she came forward. She gave her testimony. This is actually in Hebrew, so I'm just going to read what she said. On February 28th of this year, she made this statement. I grew up in the Jewish settlement of Hebron. Starting from the age of 2.5, my parents took me to pedophile rituals in which I've been programmed, trained using drugs, hypnosis, and sexual abuse. This pretty much sounds like MK Ultra, except it's not in the United States. When I was 13, my father started pimping me out in Tel Aviv, and he made money off my back. The abuse continued until a much older age. What happened now is that even though I've already published and I've told my story, my father keeps hurting me. He came to my apartment 2 weeks ago and abused me again. He brought another person with him who he is training to be my next handler after my father dies. Since the last assault, I left my apartment and I have no home. So this story has not gotten as much attention as I think that it needs to. There seems to be little to no attention about it in Israel. It is just now starting to kind of break on a wide scale. There are countless people, just like Shoshana, who have come forward in the last several years and said that they too were involved in this sick satanic, systematic, ritualistic sexual abuse. This is oftentimes within the Jewish Orthodox community in Israel. And we've also seen it here in the United States. We've seen it in some South American countries. There have been so many testimonies of people accusing senior Israeli government officials. It's no wonder that people are not talking about it. Rabbis, people in the Knesset, leaders in various aspects of Israeli society. So, in this video right here, this is her testimony to the Knesset, where she is describing in excruciating detail the exact nature of one such event that happened to her. I'm not going to read through the whole thing because it's so disturbing, but I'm just going to give you a little piece of it. She said, "I'm tied to a bed. I can't move at all. There are a lot of people around me. They're holding a snake and they very cruelly put it inside me. The pain is horrible. They pull it out all covered in blood. They butcher it, make me drink the mixed blood and drink it themselves. The explanation was that I'm now basically a gateway. Now I'm scared. Anyone who wants to join the, quote, family has to go through me." So the person who posted this, which is BM on Twitter, he says, "The theology behind the snake can be discussed for hours." Obviously, I'm sure, it evokes a lot of different things, but I'll try to make it short. The snake is an extremely powerful symbol in Judaism, strongly tied to sex, sinfulness, evil, and surprisingly, the Messiah. According to the Talmud, the snake in the book of Genesis defiled Eve, basically defiling the entire human race forever and making it sinful. According to the Kabbalah, there's also a good snake, a serpent of holiness that can fix the defilement caused by the serpent of impurity. Now, this gets worse before it gets better. Now, in January, shortly before that first statement that we heard from Shoshana, this is after she had already come forward, there was one religious Jewish leader in Israel that I have seen come and speak about this publicly, and his name is Rabbi Yaakov Madan. And he made this video, and he put it out, basically got no attention, and in this video, he basically admits that the sexual abuse is taking place, that it is ritualistic in nature, and that it's done with the participation of senior public officials, and it's led by some of the most prominent rabbis and religious leaders in the country. And he even names a couple of them. Rabbi Shmuel Eliyahu, who's the father of Minister Amichai Eliyahu, who's in the Knesset. Rabbi Zvi Tau, who's one of the many disciples in the new head of the Shin Bet. And in this video, he goes on for about 5 minutes talking about how horrible this is, the damage that it does, and the fact that Israel needs to accept that this is happening so that they can move past it, so that they can heal, and that they can stop doing what is so clearly damaging and awful to society as well as the people. Now, Shoshana was found dead this spring. She was, she was murdered. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. And her murder is reported to be suicide, but she was not suicidal in anything that I ever saw. She was very passionate about getting her story out there and exposing the sick people within the Israeli elite that were doing this to her. She had asked over and over and over again for protection from not only the police, but the public. She was basically brushed off. She did at one point have to run from her home, and she would at times be harassed on the street by people with cameras who were upset that she was exposing this. And then she turned up dead. Now, we don't know who killed her. We don't know much other than that, other than she came forward and she was murdered, okay? And I think that it's pretty obvious why she was murdered. So now, as I said, it is starting to break wide in Israeli culture. There is a 1-hour TV documentary, actually, about this sick, ritualistic sexual abuse that just came out this past week, and the leaders of settlements in South Jerusalem have now openly admitted that not only have they been raping and sexually abusing these children in a sadistic and ritualistic way, they've also been producing child pornography the entire time. They will gang rape children and then they will film it. And I don't know what they're doing with the videos, but at the very least, they're keeping it for themselves. Maybe they're passing it around the community. So this is now openly admitted. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is conspiracy fact. And it's one of the most sick and horrifying things that I've ever heard of. Now, I know that this happens here in the United States as well, but, you know, it makes me think twice about the nature of why it's happening here in the United States. You know, what's really behind it? It's not just the intelligence community. It's not just, you know, one type of people, because obviously we've had people of all races who seem to be involved in this type of sexual abuse. You know, Jews, Muslims, Christians, atheists. You know, I mean, it's so prevalent. And, you know, I've always known that it was prevalent, but you get to a certain point and you start thinking like, my God, just like, how prevalent is it? Like, how many people out there is this happening to? How many people are suffering in silence? How many people have been abused and have had their minds broken? How many people have like fully gone through the MK program and come out the other end and don't have any conscious memory of the twisted and sadistic things that went on when they were children, and maybe even continue on to this day because their mind is fractured, because they're not allowed to consciously remember it. This is the scourge of Satan. This is the most evil and heinous thing that I can possibly imagine taking place on earth. And it's happening all over the place. You know, I look at this and I think a lot of people would just say, oh, the Jews are sick. But the fact of the matter is, it's not all Jews, and it's a lot more than just the Jews. I think that this is a sickness among the elite. And sure, there's plenty of Jews among the elite. There's plenty of lots of different people among the elite. But this seems to be very prevalent among power dynamic relationships. And I don't know what the answer is to stop it, because it's so prevalent. It's so, it's just, there's so much of it. I don't know what to do. But maybe the fact that, you know, we've been talking about it for years, and the fact that now they're being forced to admit it on national television in Israel, something will finally be able to happen about it. Surter says, remember the tunnels in New York where they, of course, yeah, they found the mattress. Sue Castellano, Oprah had a woman on her show that talked about all the ritualistic abuse in Jewish families, and that there's a big population of them here in America. There is, yeah, there's huge enclaves of Orthodox Jews in a number of different places. So yeah, it is a global satanic cabal. It truly is. All right, so I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that this story is perhaps now on the verge of breaking open in a way that it never has before. I know a lot of you here in the chat, maybe just like me, you started doing this work right here because of what was happening to children. And it is one of the most damaging things for your own psyche to even confront this stuff and try to raise awareness about it, especially when people look at you like you're crazy, like that doesn't happen. No, if that happened, I'd know about it. You know, but the thing is that it happens because you don't know about it. So that's why we have to talk about it. All right. Now, we also need to talk about, Bella says never happened in our family. Exactly. It doesn't happen in every family, but it happens in enough families that it needs to be addressed. And we need to make sure that there's no, oh shit, what happened to my vape? I lost my vape. I have one vape. Normally I have multiples. All right. So here's another thing. You know, yesterday I talked about the acceleration of the downfall of Seattle thanks to their socialist mayor. I think we're seeing the same thing in New York. In many of these Democrat-run hellholes, that's what appears to be happening. I think we're also seeing an acceleration of the two-party system being destroyed. here in the United States, because we know the Democrats are shit. And a lot of people have only recently come around to the idea that a lot of Republicans in politics are shit as well. They don't care about you. They care about themselves. They care about getting reelected. They care about their power. They care about their stock portfolios. They certainly don't care about the decisions they make that affect you on a daily basis. You're a peon. You're a pleb. You're a peasant. They don't care about us. They care about themselves. They care about their donors. They care about their political acolytes. Well, look at this. In the 2027 NDAA, which was written by the most recent Congress that we are now going to be replacing a number of people from, it appears that Congress is seemingly merging the U.S. and Israeli militaries. This is a completely unacceptable thing to me. If it wasn't Israel and it was, say, Mexico or it was Canada, I'd be just as pissed. But for this to be happening at the same time that Netanyahu is saying, like, oh, we need to decouple from U.S. Foreign aid, great. We're not going to pay you $4 billion a year anymore. So, you know, make sure that you can run your own country without having to come to the United States of America and have us cut you a check every year. If you are a nation, I don't care what nation, and the only way you can survive is by taking $4 billion from myself and my family and our pockets, then perhaps you need to change the way you do business. Maybe you shouldn't be a country at all. I think that it's entirely possible for nations to be able to run things and run things effectively without getting a $4 billion check from the United States. So maybe this is how Congress thinks they're going to get around that. Maybe they think, okay, well, you know, we'll just rob from Peter to pay Paul. We won't cut them a check anymore. We'll just completely merge the United States and Israel's defense capabilities. So inside the 2027 NDAA is Section 224, and you can look it up, United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, which would dramatically expand U.S.-Israel military cooperation far beyond the current model. So we're talking bilateral research and development, weapons co-production, and deep defense tech integration. It also names emerging technologies like AI, quantum, autonomous systems, directed energy, cyber, biotech, and more. So basically everything that would be necessary to carry on a war in the future. One of the most alarming phrases in the bill, Ben Freeman says, is network integration and data fusion. So that would be taking the data from the U.S. military and the data from the Israeli military and essentially merging them together, which is, you know, far different from two different countries operating with, you know, similar goals and perhaps helping each other out. And again, we give a lot of financial support to Israel. Since 1948, just to the military, they've gotten $200 billion in adjusted for inflation. This Section 224 would shift from that aid, as I said, into just full-on integration. So everything that we do, we end up doing together. So this to me looks like the acceleration of Congress proving that what they want to do is essentially dilute the sovereignty and the independence of the United States. You know, there's a lot of people right now. I was talking to a young man yesterday, and he's a Marine, okay? I graduated from high school a couple years ago, joined the Marines. I said, you know, thank you for service, Semper Fi. And then we were talking about the podcast, and he said, you know, I'm disappointed in President Trump, and that is a large section of the youth today is sort of disaffected by President Trump because, you know, I think that they're perennially online and maybe they're not getting their information from all of the best sources, but there's a lot of really loud voices out there that are saying that Trump is controlled by Israel. Trump is, you know, only taking us to Iran for the benefit of Israel. And I was like, give me 5 minutes and let me explain to you why that's not true. So, Trump has always said Israel or Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Why can't Iran have a nuclear weapon? Well, if Iran had a nuclear weapon, then you would have the specter of a nuclear Iran threatening to blow anybody up anywhere in the world that they wanted to. Obviously, we don't want that. They can be contained and controlled and perhaps, integrated economically for the benefit of mankind if they don't have a nuclear weapon. The other aspect of that is that one of the main reasons they can't have a nuclear weapon is because Israel's got a nuclear weapon. Can you imagine two nuclear powers that hate each other so much that they're always looking for reasons to blow each other up to kingdom come? That would be more dangerous than anything, because if one of them launches a nuke, the other one's immediately going to launch a nuke. And Israel has what's called the Samson option, which is if they're going to be attacked like that, then they just send off all their nukes to go everywhere and take everybody out. President Trump obviously can't allow that to happen. And so, the operation in Iran, from my perspective, is not about, destroying Iran. It may be about a realignment of the government, but it's in a larger sense a realignment of the Middle East. Those other Muslim nations that exist around Iran, they're just as nervous about a nuclear Iran as President Trump is, or anybody else should be, because an attack on Iran right next to their borders could potentially mean fallout for the people in their country as well. Everybody wants to just get along. Everybody just wants to, do their thing, prosper, be happy, and, be a sovereign nation. You can't have that when you've got this specter of a war that is always looming up. And Israel has stated time and time again that their goal is the total domination of the region. They need an excuse to go out and to wage war, to go into these places. I mean, even right now, they're bombing Lebanon. They're bombing Christian communities in Lebanon. Those communities are not doing anything to them, and they're certainly not being funded by Iran. But they say that Hamas is in Lebanon, so they're going to attack Lebanon. Well, if we can bring peace to the region, then those people everywhere don't have to worry about being bombed. So I explained all this to him, and I said, you can, take my word for it, do a little bit of research on it, go check it out. But a stable Iran, a non-nuclear Iran, a Middle East that is free from the specter of war is good for everybody. It's not just good for Israel. In fact, I would posit that based upon Israel's ultimate stated goals, it's better for Israel to have a foe in Iran than a peaceful Iran. Because once there's peace, there's no reason to wage war. There's no reason to attack anybody. There's no reason to advance beyond their existing borders. And so President Trump is putting a stop to that. For people who haven't considered all of these things, it's difficult to perceive that if you've never even thought about it. But here in the United States, you've got quite a few people in Congress, I believe, whose goal is not making America great again or putting America first. Again, it's putting themselves first, and it is pushing the war machine first. Think about how many people in Congress used to get fat, rich as all get out from the constant 24-hour, 365-a-day forever wars that were waged with our military and other militaries around the world. They didn't care about sacrificing the men and women that were in uniform. They didn't care about sending American citizens, because it's not their kids. They didn't care about sending those people around the world to wage battles, and of course, there was a huge return on the heroin in Afghanistan for the 2+ decades that we were there. So those people, they need to be exposed. They need to be fully exposed. And I think that a move like this accelerates that. We just had a huge turnover in terms of the primary. We are on the verge of creating a huge turnover in Congress with the election in November. And I think that that is what needs to happen. We need to replace the people who put America last with people who are truly going to put America first, with people who not only want to put America first, but want to help us bring peace to the world, because that's what President Trump wants. Ultimately, that is what President Trump wants. Let me say thank you to Righteous Anger 1776, who says, saving Israel for last. Yes, my friend. Let's see. Oh, and I already read that one from Surtur. Okay. No, Eliza Jane, I think that you're correct, but there are different types of Islam. Right now, President Trump has made peace with the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Those nations are not out waging war. Those nations are not out dropping bombs on anybody. Those nations have entered into security agreements with the United States, which means that if somebody attacks the United States, they're obligated to back us up. This is like a Middle Eastern NATO almost. And the same goes for us here in the United States. But the thing is that, I don't think Israel is any less likely to want peace than some of these other nations. At the end of the day, it's about a lot more than just, what holy book they're reading. You've got greedy people. You've got people who are invested in the business of war. And President Trump is not a warmonger. All right. Now, let's continue. Moving on from this, accelerate and expose. All right. Now, talking about accelerating and expose, we're going to jump over to California. Nithya Raman, one of the candidates running against Spencer Pratt, the city council member who has done nothing about the homeless problem, just like Karen Bass, was the subject of a protest of sorts where Angelenos brought homeless people and people dressed up like homeless people and set up a homeless encampment outside the home of Nithya Raman. And this is brilliant. Take a listen.
These videos all over on social media, sparking debate over political protest and personal space. The videos now viewed hundreds of thousands of times online.
This is crazy.
Fake homeless encampments set up outside LA City Councilwoman and mayoral candidate Nithya Raman's home.
This is happening all over the city, and we brought it to her doorstep so she can see what other people are going through.
A man who claims he helped organize the stunt spoke exclusively with Fox 11 with his face covered.
All the political violence that's been going on is really important that people protect their identities.
Tents, trash, old tires, and a barbecue Monday morning, all outside Raman's home.
Basically doing a parody ad for her. Like if we were in charge of her campaign, this was the ad that we would make.
Yo, what's going on?
What he describes as a broader, sarcastic effort across Raman's Council District 4 in support of Spencer Pratt. Do you know Spencer Pratt, or are you affiliated with the Spencer Pratt campaign?
Absolutely never met him. Big fan of his work.
Who is funding this?
So we have a group of donors from around the country. Check us out online at Safe Cities USA.
My support has been growing.
At a press conference Thursday, Raman discussed a new UC Berkeley poll showing her in second place in the mayor's race, but did not address the videos.
I looked out the window and I realized that there were people setting up what was, I think, a fake encampment.
He's drinking the E&J.
Meant like a homeless encampment outside of my house.
Earlier this week, though, she spoke about them on the Adam Conover podcast.
I have two little kids.
Yeah.
They didn't see it, luckily, this morning. But, I feel badly that I'm even subjecting them to that at all. But,
Well, the point is here, Nithya, all of the other kids of Los Angeles that are subjected to the exact same thing. As Spencer has said, Nithya Raman said she doesn't believe that there's any difference between a homeless encampment 5 feet away from a school or 5,000 feet away from a school, meaning that she's totally cool with homeless encampments being set up in front of other people's houses and in front of other people's kids' schools, but obviously not in front of her house, which is in a really nice part of town.
But it has definitely, this has gone far beyond what I expected the campaign to be about.
They feel like this draws the line.
Yeah, I think that, it's a public street, and I can see where she's upset, but to think about everybody else that's going through the same thing constantly that are being ignored.
This race.
The barbecue. She also wanted to put a ban on people barbecuing outside during the summer.
Already getting national attention with the election now just a few days away. Matthew Seedorf reporting, Fox 11 News.
Oh, so brilliant. Patty Nine Fingers says, if you get Lyme disease, there are cures. That is absolutely correct. And you do have to go to a Lyme competent or literate doctor. So he says his wife is currently going through detox for several types of Lyme disease. One of those that I know about is bee sting therapy. I've read about many different people. I've actually seen interviews with several people who had crippling Lyme disease for years. They started doing bee sting therapy and they completely cured themselves. She's using a homeopathic doctor, Dr. Bonnie. Yes, this is another thing. Like, just because you get Lyme disease doesn't mean that you're going to suffer with Lyme disease forever. What's really unfortunate is that there are a lot of doctors who are part of the mainstream medical system who for years just did not want to deal with somebody if they had Lyme disease because they didn't know how to treat it. Maybe they acted like it didn't exist. For years, a lot of people with Lyme disease were told that they had something wrong with their head, that it was actually a psychological problem because when they tested their blood or when they looked at their tissues, they couldn't find anything that they were used to looking for. But, you know, the problem is that it's caused by a bacteriological issue. So they're not necessarily going to see it unless they know exactly what to go look for. Anyways, I would encourage you guys, if you haven't yet, to go see the 2 episodes of Baseless Conspiracies, because even if you don't watch Baseless Conspiracies, it's basically me presenting the information to John, and then John questions what I'm telling him. He's playing the devil's advocate, but it's a great show, and I would suggest you guys watch it, especially if you like my delivery and you want to see deeper dives on specific issues. So this was great. This, I think, really drove the idea home, and I hope that it gave Nithya Raman something to think about. Now, she went on that podcast, and she was not happy. She was not happy about the fact that these people showed up outside her house. Now, if she is elected, LA is it's going to get worse, okay? It's not going to get any better. And maybe, unfortunately, that's what people need, is to accelerate the destruction. Although I look at LA today and I see what can only be described as hell on earth. I mean, how much worse do you really need it to get? It's not an exaggeration to say that Los Angeles has fallen. Have you guys ever seen Escape from LA or Escape from New York? I feel like those movies were prophetic. You look at Snake Plissken making his way through a post-apocalyptic New York or a post-apocalyptic LA, and it's basically the exact same thing as what you see today. And thank you, Patty Nine Fingers, for the donation over there on Rumble Wallet. Appreciate you. Also, Principal Enigma says the problem with today's nation of Israel is that it is being led by Zionists. If you take them out of the picture, Israel will be a completely different place. It'll be more like us. Maybe, you know, I mean, like there's a lot of the Orthodox Jew communities in Israel are anti-Zionist. But that's also where a large portion of this ritualistic sexual abuse is happening. So I don't know that it is quite so simple as removing a single ideology. So again, it's a multifaceted and very complicated problem. All right, now, so Nithya Raman, she was not happy that these people showed up. And you know what? Do they have another clip? I thought that I had a different quote from her. Yeah. Okay, so this is her talking about the encampment.
So I woke up this morning to a sound of commotion outside of my window, and I looked out the window and I realized that there were people setting up what was, I think, a fake encampment, like a homeless encampment outside of my house.
Fake homeless encampment, but real homeless people. I hope they stick around. I hope they stay there. Phil, what's up, buddy? Glad you're here.
People gathered there filming it to make shooting something with cameras and things like that outside of my house.
Yeah.
I think to make a political video that would talk about how I don't want this at all, but how I'm, you know, that this is somebody who wants encampments on our streets, that she lets encampments be there. I have 2 little kids.
Yeah.
They didn't see it. luckily this morning, but you know, I feel badly that I'm even subjecting them to that at all. But
But again, what about the other people of Los Angeles, and what about their kids?
But it has definitely, this has gone far beyond what I expected the campaign to be about. I, again, thought it would be about bike lanes and management of the Department of Transportation.
Yeah. Oh, man, she is absolutely not getting the point. Here she is at a city council meeting getting booed by her constituents. This, I think, is indicative of the level of support that she truly has.
I mean, it's like, I don't think a kid's going to be safer because a tent is 500 feet away from a school. You know, it just doesn't.
Anyways, I hope somebody plays that clip for her. Remember when you said it doesn't matter if a homeless encampment is 5 feet away or 500 feet away? Because it sure matters when it's your house. All right, here is the latest Gene Parmesan Spencer Pratt campaign ad. Take a look. I'll be right back.
Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God, please.
My daughter, she's sick.
Spencer Pratt is the common sense choice for Los Angeles. Just look around. The city is a mess and our leaders have failed us. Homelessness, crime, drugs, everything is worse under Karen Bass.
This is bad. She's caught the Pratt. How did this happen?
We restrict her media diet. New York Times, MSNBC, NPR, maybe CNN if we're feeling frisky. Something must have slipped through.
Does she know anyone at all, who thinks for themselves?
I don't know. I don't think so. What is this?
It starts with a mild cough. And then, next thing you know, you hate seeing homeless drug addicts inject near kids. It's very contagious. I'm going to prescribe 4 doses of NPR every hour on the hour, 2 doses of the New York Times, and 5 doses of the LA Times.
Why was Karen Bass in Ghana while the city was burning?
6 doses. 6 doses of the LA Times. We'll have to hold her in quarantine with the others for a few days. It's protocol.
So, again, Gene Parmesan is not affiliated with Spencer Pratt's campaign. I don't think that any of these ads were actually produced by Spencer or his campaign. These are all organically produced by people who are simply talented. 24 Diane Sharp says, that happened to the mayor of Seattle during the Summer of Love. Pramila Jayapal, when she was in Seattle, took people from the Chaz to the mayor's house. Chaz was broken up the next day. That's great. Yeah, I remember that. All right. Now, here is also Spencer appearing with, what's his name? I forgot his name. Jake Crapper. Jake tries to ensnare Spencer in the question about a conspiracy theory related to 9/11. Let's take a listen.
Do you still think that 9/11 was an inside job?
What I've learned, almost 20 years later, is it's actually the negligence of the people in power. I would have loved to have gone along with when my house burned down and my parents' house burned down, everyone saying it was lasers, it was a land grab, it was just like Maui, but it's not. The reality is people in charge fail us as taxpayers. And when you're listening to that audio, that's a 21, 22-year-old person. I'm now 42 and have experienced city negligence, state negligence. And I've learned a lot about it. It's actually worse than a conspiracy. It's that we have people in charge that make mistakes that get people killed. So unfortunately, I was young and naive to understanding how there is people that will fail citizens across the board. And I would have to go back and look at all that. I haven't watched any of those things in 20 years or whatever. But I bet now with my fresh eyes of surviving the city's negligence that burned 12 people in my neighborhood alive, 7,000 structures,
it was horrible.
And seeing how fast the internet was set.
Jake Tapper right now is like, shit, he's good. He's so good. I just gave him the opportunity to sidestep that. And what he's saying makes so much sense. I bet you he's thinking he might vote for Spencer.
That was a conspiracy, and how I had to be like, no, this is how it happened, this, and this. Now with new, fresh eyes, I'm sure I would look at that a lot different. I think anytime we see something that's just so shocking and unbelievable, we as humans want to try to find excuses, but sometimes the excuses are just real simple. People failed us as taxpayers.
So that interview was in 2009. You were almost, it was in July 2009, so you were almost 26 years old, just to be clear. Do you regret saying that? I mean, do you now accept that 9/11 was because of al-Qaeda terrorists, not because of an inside job by the U.S. government?
Well, no, again, what I'm saying is I believe a lot of people failed to allow the al-Qaeda terrorists to get in. So I think the negligence in government allowed, not on purpose, but just failures. They didn't burn my house down on purpose. They just failed.
Well, I'll say it, Spencer, because I don't give a shit. They can say whatever the hell they want about me. It was on purpose. I believe 100% that what happened in the Palisades was on purpose. I also believe 100% that 9/11 was, in fact, an inside job. It was definitely an inside job. It was definitely allowed to happen on purpose. And yeah, there is also a lot of incompetence among elected leaders, among bureaucrats. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's been so easy all these years for people who do these things intentionally to get away with it. Because then they can sort of just say, oh, you know what? I'm just stupid. Oh, I screwed up, guys. Oh, gosh, maybe I shouldn't have approved all the visas for the 15 hijackers to come on in because, obviously we couldn't have blamed it on them if I hadn't done it. That's my best impression of John Brennan. John Brennan. All right, now, here is another one. Spencer is being interviewed by an NBC reporter, and this guy also tries to get him. He's like, man, your brand is so hot. This is one of the criticisms that they have of Spencer Pratt. Oh, he's doing it for his brand. He's doing it because he wants to be famous. It's not because he wants to be famous. It's because they burned his house down.
What about people that might say, is this just about self-promotion? Is this just about to get your brand? And man, your brand is hot right now. It's probably hotter than ever right now. How do you convince those people that you say, no, I really want this?
That guy was really slobbing his knob there for a second, wasn't he?
Job. I want to change the city.
Yeah, let's rewind. Everything I've ever worked for burned in my house. Everything my parents ever worked for burned in their house. I got on this mission. It was never to run for mayor. I started this to expose the corruption and the negligence of our city leaders. And when I got to the farthest distance I could, where I proved they were obstructing justice, altering after-action reports after the fire, and there was nothing more they could do, that's when I organically got in the race because no one else was going to run. I was never going to be the mayor, but nobody was going to run against her that could beat her. I had to step into this. And again, running for mayor is not fun, let's be clear. I have to have 24-hour security with the amount of death threats. My kid now has to have a security next to him when he goes in the ocean because psychos come to the beach to... This is not like, oh, I get to be on a new show. I'm like, oh, I'm Tom Cruise. I'm in Top Gun 3 with Miles Teller. This is not fun fighting DSA socialists in the city of LA. So anybody that really is paying attention, politics is not fun. And now I'm deep in politics fighting a machine that is against the truth.
All right. So right now, as of today, and we're still a couple of days away from the actual election, Spencer is polling at 30%. Karen Bass is polling at 32%. And Nithya Raman is polling at 18%. So Spencer is 2 percentage points away from Karen Bass. He is almost the #1 candidate. He is doing such a good job. He just needs to keep going. Now, since we're in California, let's check in with Bill Asaley because we still have more operations taking place in MacArthur Park. Now, he posted this early this morning. He says, this morning, FBI Los Angeles arrested Michael Angel Alvarez, 41, a.k.a. Diablo. Diablo is an active 18th Street gang member. He's a convicted murderer, and he's a Los Angeles peace ambassador. Guess what? That means he's being paid by L.A. City taxpayer dollars. Now, according to Councilwoman Eunices Hernandez, Peace ambassadors are embedded in the community they serve. Their presence strengthens safety networks and ensures families have someone to turn to outside of law enforcement when facing non-emergency conflict or community stress. Now, the person you want to be in that position is a convicted murderer and an 18th Street gangbanger, don't you think? Alvarez is charged in a federal criminal complaint with possession of body armor by a violent felon, which carries a statutory maximum sentence of 5 years in federal prison. Now, according to an affidavit filed with the complaint, Alvarez was paid more than $58,000 last year. That's more than I made last year for his work for Healing Urban Barrios. It's an organization that contracted with the city for its Peace Ambassador program that is run in the city's Council District 1. That includes MacArthur Park. Alvarez was also convicted back in 2002 for first-degree murder. That's the cold-blooded murder of a human being, in case you're not aware. He was sentenced to 50 years to life in state prison, but he was released by the state of California after serving only 24 years. Thank you so much to Adel at 412 for the raid over there on Pilled. Appreciate you that, buddy. There is no indication that Alvarez has ever stopped associating with the 18th Street Gang. In fact, in jailhouse telephone call recordings of Alvarez since his release from state prison, he discussed assaulting individuals for breaking gang rules. Now, the LAPD's Rampart division, I didn't even know Rampart was still a thing, but wicked. They searched Alvarez's car near MacArthur Park, and they discovered 2 body armor plates in the trunk. The plates are from Las Vegas and are marked as the highest protection level available on the civilian market. The hardworking taxpayers of Los Angeles deserve better than to see their money shelled out to a convicted gang murderer.
Today we're here in MacArthur Park to talk about a series of new initiatives that we're launching in the park and around the neighborhood. We're here to talk about...
They told the drug dealers and the junkies not to show up on this day. Or maybe they took this video before they started distributing the crack pipes and the needles along with packages of fentanyl and super meth to the homeless, and then they showed up.
About our clean teams, litter abatement, bulky item pickup. We're also here to talk about our peace ambassadors. We're working with 2 organizations, Healing Urban Barrios and Homies Unidos, to bring in teams into the neighborhood that create safe passageways for people in the area. Today we're here in MacArthur Park to...
Homies in the barrios. Anyways, that was Eunice Hernandez right there, speaking about the reimagining of public safety. And there is our 18th Street gangbanger Diablo right there. There's his business card, his Peace Ambassador business card. Michael Angel at hubprograms.org. He's not going to be doing that anymore. So once again, we have another felon, convicted murderer. This time he's not distributing drugs, but I'd be surprised if he wasn't involved in the drug trade, considering he's still an 18th Street gangbanger. Bill Asaley wants you to know this is not the first instance of an active criminal being funded by Los Angeles taxpayers. You also had Eugene Henley Jr., a.k.a. Big U. He was charged by our office in March of 2025 for dozens of felonies, including fraud, robbery, extortion, tax evasion, embezzlement of donations to his charity that receives public money, and running a racketeering conspiracy in which he allegedly murdered an aspiring musician. Now, according to the indictment, Henley used his anti-gang charity, Developing Options, as a front for fraudulent activities and to insulate other members of his racketeering enterprise from law enforcement suspicion. Under Henley's leadership, Developing Options was primarily funded through the City of Los Angeles' mayor's office through the Gang Reduction Youth Development Program. Specifically, from or on about July 1st of 2018 to on or about June 30th of 2023, Developing Options was allotted $2.35 million from the mayor's office in the city of Los Angeles. This type of shit will not happen if Spencer Pratt is allowed to win. All right. Now, figured we might as well check in with Steve Hilton as well, because Steve Hilton is far and away the #1 candidate for governor in the state of California. I believe Tom Steyer is second to him, but Tom Steyer is about 10 points behind Steve Hilton. Steve Hilton has not reached the 50% threshold, but it's very clear that if a runoff is eventually called after the upcoming election, Steve Hilton is going to be the guy to beat. So here, Steve Hilton lays out his plan if he is elected mayor. A couple of highlights here. First, $100,000 you make in the state of California, it's tax-free. No tax on tips for the state taxes as well as the federal. Remember, California was threatening to continue taxing your tips, even though the federal government wasn't going to. They would also cap vehicle registration fees at a flat $71. They would abolish the $800 small business tax, and there would also be no income or property taxes for veterans, which is the first time I've heard anything like that. I think that's a great idea.
The simplest way we can actually cut your costs is to stop taking so much money from you in the first place. In many counties, the official level for being low income is 100 grand. So my tax plan starts with making your first 100 grand tax-free. It's crazy that you've got people earning 75, 80, 90 grand paying 9.3% state income tax. 9.3% is higher than the top rate of tax in most other states in America. Another tax change that we got to make happen in California, what's happened in most other states, is applying the federal no tax on tips policy to state income taxes. Vehicle registration. In most states in America, it costs less than $100 a year to register your vehicle. Here in California, I've heard stories of people paying over $2.
Hold on, Muffin just barked. She's got to go outside. Ugh, I'll be right back. Where's my be right back screen? Oh, geez, it's you. Okay. False alarm. Muffin was just excited to see her mom.
$1,000. It's totally outrageous. Another complete rip-off from the Democrat machine. When you look at where the money goes, it's all these weird little slush funds. There's something called the Transportation Improvement Fund. What are they improving? Nothing's getting better. In fact, in exchange for the highest vehicle registration, we've got the worst roads in America. So we're going to cap vehicle registration at a simple, flat registration fee, $71 per vehicle per year. That actually gives the same amount of money going into roads as we have now. What we're cutting out is all this bloat and BS in the system. And then the fourth tax change, it doesn't affect so many people, but the people it affects are the ones we should really be valuing, cherishing, and supporting in our communities, and that's our veterans. In most other states, veterans don't pay income tax. They don't pay property tax. These people have given so much to us. It's time we gave back something to them.
Saw somebody say, where is Swalwell? He dropped out months ago. He got ran out the race because he's going to end up in prison for raping broads, allegedly, in my opinion. All right. Now, there's a reason Steve Hilton left the UK and emigrated to the United States and became a citizen because he wanted to escape the oppressive government of the United Kingdom. And what did he do? He moved to California, probably the most oppressive government you could actually live under here in the United States. But thank God he's actually running for governor. Now, governor, the state of California has a rich history of electing immigrants to be their governor. How hilarious if it ends up being Steve Hilton. Anyways, we also need to check in with the criminal court system. So a Clinton judge has temporarily blocked President Trump's $1.8 billion compensation fund for the wrongful prosecutions of the DOJ and the government persecution of both the FBI and the DOJ. Now, this is totally ridiculous. This woman is not the president of the United States. This is a settlement that President Trump entered into with the DOJ and the IRS because the Booz Allen Hamilton contractor that was working for the IRS stole President Trump and his family's tax returns. I think he stole like 40,000 Americans' tax returns and then leaked them all to the New York Times. And yet this judge, a U.S. district judge by the name of Leonie Brinkema from the Eastern District of Virginia, who was appointed by President Bill Clinton, you're going to want to put some ice on that, Bill Clinton, has temporarily blocked President Trump from implementing the $1.8 billion fund. This is not a done deal. This is merely the same type of temporary restraining orders that we see every single time President Trump wants to do something, and you have some members of the deep state who bring a case in a sympathetic jurisdiction because they know that a judge that was appointed by a Democrat is going to be willing to say, no, I don't want President Trump to do that. We're going to stop him from allowing the Department of Justice to make good on the fact that they destroyed people's lives and shit all over their civil liberties. So earlier today, this judge has temporarily placed a block on President Trump's administration from implementing the $1.8 billion fund, the weaponization fund. That order by U.S. District Judge Leonie Brinkema has blocked the administration from taking any further action. Like, bitch, are you serious? Saying that they cannot set up or operate the fund while the judge hears additional legal arguments. Now, Andrew Floyd, who is a former federal prosecutor who investigated and persecuted people involved in January 6th, and Jonathan Carvalho, he's a California professor who was arrested while protesting an immigration raid, are the ones who filed this lawsuit last week. Also, of course, nonprofit organizations, non-governmental organizations are involved in the lawsuit. Floyd and Caravello and these nonprofits claim the compensation is so-called collusive agreement between President Trump and his administration that has no congressional authorization, no basis in law, and no accountability. This is also just one of several lawsuits filed in the last several days to stop President Trump from being able to implement this. So as an example, 2 other law enforcement officers, a couple of fags who were working on January 6th, have also confronted protesters and are also now suing to block this fund. The Trump administration had, of course, announced this $1,776,000,000 fund to compensate the people who were unjustly prosecuted or investigated under the Biden regime. That fund was a result of a settlement that President Trump came to with the IRS and the DOJ after the release of his tax returns and many other people's tax returns. Not to be done. The Democrats and these liberal activists are doing everything they can to shut it down, even though they too would qualify for money from this fund as well, if only they had been persecuted by the government. But the thing is, they weren't, and that tells you everything you need to know. There was only one class of person who was persecuted by the federal government of the United States. So, of course, they have to stop it from being implemented. Now, I'm going to suggest that even if they are successful in having this shut down in the courts, let's say President Trump makes a deal with the IRS to just take the $1,776,000,000 and then he hands it over to a private board, maybe a nonprofit, and he has the nonprofit actually hand it out to people based upon their applications. And at the end of the day, this will be a successful action. Principled Enigma also says, a plug for baseless conspiracies, because Zach continues to impress me with the vastness of his knowledge on so many different subjects. The program is definitely worth watching. By the way, Diablo means devil. Yes, it does. No Thanks Joe says, happy Friday, Lisa and Zach. A great week of exposure and repeat story reporting. Thank you both so much. There's a big wish for both of you to have a great weekend. May God bless, keep you safe, and I'm already looking forward to next week. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. All right, now we have another case where another Democrat-appointed judge has once again stepped in, moving past their judicial authority to stop President Trump from doing what he, the executive officer of the United States of America, the man that we elected to be president, decides to do, attempting to stop him from making changes that are necessary. So this federal judge blocked President Trump today from closing down the Kennedy Center and ordered that his name be removed from the building. This is U.S. District Judge Chris Cooper. He's also an Obama appointee. He said renaming the Kennedy Center was illegal. Judge Cooper issued this ruling in response to a lawsuit that was filed by Ohio Congressman Joyce Beatty. She, an ex officio member of the Kennedy Center Board of Trustees. Congress gave the Kennedy Center its name, and only Congress can change it, the judge wrote in his 94-page opinion. Now, President Trump back in February announced that the Trump Kennedy Center would be shuttered for 2 years for major renovations. And last year, the Kennedy Center board elected President Trump as the board chair. So the Trump Kennedy Center was set to close down on July 4th, and then it would reopen as a world-class bastion of arts, music, and entertainment. President Trump previously announced that in this statement. After a 1-year review of the Trump Kennedy Center that has taken place with contractors, musical experts, art institutions, and other advisors and consultants, deciding between either construction with closure and reopening or partial construction with continuing entertainment operations through a much longer period of time, working in and around the performances, I, as the president of the Kennedy Center Board, have determined that the Trump Kennedy Center, if temporarily closed for construction, revitalization, and complete rebuilding, can be without question the finest performing arts facility of its kind anywhere in the world. In other words, if we don't close, the quality of construction will not be nearly as good, and the time to completion, because of interruptions with audiences from the many events using the facility, will be much longer. The temporary closure will produce a much faster and higher quality result. Now, based on these findings and totally subject to board approval, I have determined that the fastest way to bring the Trump Kennedy Center to the highest level of success, beauty, and grandeur is to cease operations for approximately a 2-year period of time with a scheduled grand reopening that will rival and surpass anything that has taken place with respect to such a facility before. Therefore, the Trump Kennedy Center will close on July 4th, 2026 in honor of the 250th anniversary of our country, whereupon we will simultaneously begin construction of the new and spectacular entertainment complex. Financing is completed and fully in place. This important decision, based on input from many highly respected experts, will take a tired, broken, and dilapidated center, one that has been in bad condition both financially and structurally for many years, and turn it into a world-class bastion of arts, music, and entertainment, far better than it has ever been before. America will be very proud of its new and beautiful landmark for many generations to come. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, of course, the administration is going to appeal. What's also interesting, though, about Judge Chris Cooper is that Judge Chris Cooper is somebody who should actually recuse himself from this case. He never should have been allowed to make any decisions related to Kennedy Center business in the first place. Why is that? Well, he has a wife. Her name is Amy Jeffress. It's always interesting, these deep state characters. They don't take the last name of their spouse so that they can operate within Washington, D.C. And up until, recently, when people had the ability to start doing this deep dive research on their own, they were able to get away with it because people just didn't realize that these people had any association with each other. But Amy Jeffress represents a number of clients that are currently suing the administration. In fact, just this week, she filed a lawsuit on behalf of none other than Joseph Robinette Biden to keep the recordings from his ghostwriter out of the hands of Congress and from being released to the American public. So the man in question, Judge Chris Cooper, never should have been allowed to make this case in the first place. He should have recused himself, and I would imagine that's probably going to be brought up in the appeal brought by the administration. Now, yesterday we talked about the Justice Department's investigation into E. Jean Carroll for perjury. It also turns out that the Justice Department is at the same time in a different investigation looking into, in a criminal sense, billionaire Reid Hoffman for his financing of lawsuits against President Trump. If you didn't tune in yesterday, back in 2019, E. Jean Carroll alleged that Donald Trump raped her in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room in the 1990s. Now, you might think, gosh, if somebody raped me, I'd remember the actual date and time of when that rape took place. But E. Jean Carroll couldn't remember either. She just knew that it was in the 90s. So anytime during a 10-year period, she thinks that she saw Donald Trump in a Bergdorf Goodman dressing room and he stepped into the dressing room and ravaged her. Of course, she is a notorious perv, constantly talking about sex and getting men in bed. And of course, she said Donald Trump was sexy. She said rape was sexy. I mean, I don't believe E. Jean Carroll was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump. And as is my First Amendment privilege, I can express that every single day for the rest of my life. I don't believe E. Jean Carroll was sexually assaulted by Donald Trump. Donald Trump has always denied that he had anything to do with E. Jean Carroll. He called her a whack job. He said, she's not my type. He said that he never even believes that he met her. I believe Donald Trump when you say that as well. Now, another little factoid about E. Jean Carroll's alleged rape at the hands of our president was that the dress she claims that she was wearing at the time was not available at the time that she believes, or that she claims, she was actually raped. And I think that maybe it's just a little bit of a clue when she was on television with Anderson Cooper and she said, I think rape is sexy. I think rape is sexy. Take a listen.
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
He's gay, and she's trying to F him right on stage, right there on the sound stage, live on television. That's how clueless this woman is. I loved watching that interview live. To hear her say that, and my jaw dropped. And Anderson Cooper went dead silent, and then in his ear, his producer says, cut, go to commercial. She can't say shit like that. She can't say she thinks rape is sexy when she's saying that the president raped her and it was a bad thing. That sounds like she thinks rape is a good thing. Oh, man. So now we have the investigation into E. Jean Carroll for perjury, and we have another investigation into Reid Hoffman for the financing of those lawsuits. Now, Reid Hoffman has gone on record once it was revealed that he paid for those lawsuits and said, yeah, he thought it was a good thing. Now, what's interesting about it is that the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District of Illinois, like apropos of nothing, like they just came out and made a statement on Twitter, and they said that E. Jean Carroll is not the subject of an investigation in Chicago. Now, this is notable because we don't know what jurisdiction either her or Reid Hoffman are actually being investigated in. So, and I think they give us a clue here. They say the following is a statement by Andrew S. Boutros, the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. In light of widespread reporting and intense media and public interest into the E. Jean Carroll matter in New York, the Chicago U.S. Attorney's Office can confirm that it has not opened and has never opened a criminal investigation into E. Jean Carroll. Any claim to the contrary is categorically false. So I think that this means that, the fact that they're denying it and nobody said it, I think that's very telling. I would imagine that the perjury investigation into E. Jean Carroll would be in New York. And I think that maybe the criminal investigation into Reid Hoffman is likely in Chicago, because we know that they are two different investigations. And I think that without coming out and saying it publicly, because they haven't actually announced this investigation into Reid Hoffman, I think that this is the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago saying, yeah, we're investigating Reid Hoffman here. Our friends in New York are investigating E. Jean Carroll over there. So the Justice Department has definitely launched a criminal investigation into a nonprofit run by billionaire Reid Hoffman, which funded the E. Jean Carroll lawsuits. Now, the investigation is, in fact, being led by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago. They're looking into possible crimes, which include money laundering, conspiracy, and obstruction. Now, a source familiar with the matter has told CBS News that the investigation was focused on whether Carroll had committed perjury during a deposition in connection with her civil lawsuits. That is, again, a separate investigation. That's going to be in New York. But the nonprofit in question is the American Future Republic. Now, they must be incorporated in the state of Illinois and perhaps even in Chicago. So E. Jean Carroll and Reid Hoffman both woke up today with tight, burning assholes. Both of them just, oh, God, I'm so tense. I know now we're both being criminally investigated. And I can't wait until they get their communications. Can't wait till they get all of the records from the nonprofit. You know, what did Reid Hoffman's nonprofit do when they were supposed to report the money paid to E. Jean Carroll for the lawsuit? Is that even legal? Is that even legal for a nonprofit to just write a check to a random woman? I mean, it wasn't like if it was a grant or something like that. That might be one thing. But E. Jean Carroll was just a private citizen, and she didn't like apply for a grant for legal fees to be covered for a lawsuit against Donald Trump. No, none of this is legal. So that's where the money laundering comes in. I'm sure that there are certain tax implications. Like, as an example, if Reid Hoffman or anybody gave E. Jean Carroll $2.5 million towards the payment of legal fees, that would undoubtedly be considered income because that's a large cash gift. And E. Jean Carroll, as such, would have been required to report that on her tax returns. Something tells me that E. Jean Carroll did not do that. Something tells me that E. Jean Carroll conveniently left that off of her tax return, her 1099 for that year, which is going to be a whole other set of criminal charges and investigations. I mean, because again, you know, might as well play this. I mean, when she was subpoenaed and questioned in a deposition by Harmeet Dillon, she said nobody paid for her legal fees. But she said, I just forgot. If she forgot at the time that she was undergoing the lawsuit and she was giving a deposition, I tend to believe that she must have forgotten when she filed her taxes.
Another thing that he and his lawyers have often spoken about is the lack of disclosure about a big Democratic donor funding part of this case. Was there a reason it wasn't disclosed, and did you view this as political in any way?
No, I just completely forgot.
So Lou says, Zach, the Northern District of Illinois has an office in Chicago, Eastern Division, and one in Rockford, Western Division. Rockford is Democrat, but would have a better conviction than Chicago. So the Northern District of Chicago is the office that we spoke about just yesterday that Andrew Boutros went through and cleaned out and had to fire a bunch of people and had to completely revamp and retrain anybody who was working there because that's the same office that screwed the pooch on the Broadway 6 grand jury and charges that were taking place there. So maybe historically, but I'm hoping that with the work Andrew Boutros is doing, he is fundamentally reforming that particular office where this is taking place. And maybe he's also handling the case himself just to make sure that nothing goes wrong.
I just completely forgot that he even existed.
In your deposition?
Yes, in my deposition.
My team looked at it and
yeah. And then he goes on to admit that, yeah, sure, my team and I thought that it was something we should really cover. But if he paid for it with a nonprofit, there's all kinds of illegal activities going on there. All right. Now, we also have this information coming from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. $8 billion in cryptocurrency has just been seized as part of an international scam crackdown. So the FBI has seized this record-setting $8 billion in cryptocurrency and arrested hundreds of suspects as part of this intercontinental crackdown on scam compounds, organized crime, and there was one group known as the Democratic Karen Benevolent Army. I've never heard of them. The Democratic Karen Benevolent Army. We'll look at them in just a second. So they have been blamed for a global wave of theft from Americans. That includes as much as $3 million from a single U.S. citizen who fell prey to one of these online scams. So the FBI confiscated more than 127,000 Bitcoin during the arrest of one of their leaders, Chen Ji. He was the CEO of a Cambodian enterprise called the Prince Holding Group. That one is worth more than $8 billion, possibly more than $15 billion by the time they actually seize the crypto. And officials are calling it the largest single forfeiture in the history of the U.S. government. So the Democratic Karen Benevolent Army is an armed militia named after a region in Myanmar with alleged ties to the Chinese mob and they're currently under sanctions from the U.S. Treasury for previous large-scale scam operations. They've been designated as a transnational criminal organization by the federal government. More compounds in Asia, in Africa, and in the Middle East have also allegedly been tied to Chinese organized crime, and they were specifically targeting Americans. They were undergoing operations to dismantle these additional centers. That is still underway globally. Scam compounds are not just call centers. These are organized criminal enterprises that are built to steal from Americans, launder money, and exploit people at scale. One of the really horrible things that a lot of people don't know about these things is that people will come from Asian countries and they will like reply to an ad for a job or something like that. They will travel to where they think they're going to interview. And then once they get there, it turns out that it's a scam call center, one of these compounds that's being run by the Chinese triad or the Chinese mob. They will seize the person's passport, and then they will essentially hold them there under threat of death or injury. And they will then be a slave to the triad, and they are forced to do these calls. And if they're not successful, then they can end up just getting capped and thrown in the ground. So the FBI has been leading the charge from taking down Prince Group and in Cambodia to Operation Sand Dollar in Dubai. I love that. We helped free nearly 2,000 trafficked workers. We shut down more than $8 billion in scam center fraud and arrested nearly 300 people, FBI Director Kash Patel said. Oh, I thought they said Kash Patel was going to get fired. I guess not. If you target Americans, we will find you, disrupt your network, and bring every available tool of the federal government down on you. In Thailand, photos show the FBI seized thousands of smartphones as well as office equipment from an operation there. In Dubai, that's where they arrested 275 people, 6 of whom will be extradited to the United States to face federal charges. Each one of the 9 compounds raided were allegedly taking in $6 million in fraud proceeds per year. The Prince Group is accused of running similar guarded compounds all around the world. Now, the guy who was running the Prince Group, Xi, he faces federal charges for wire fraud and money laundering conspiracy. And an FBI official said that the Bureau has been prioritizing the crackdown on these groups for the last 12 months. That official said the $3 million case involved one person who was the victim of a romance scheme. They also call them a pig butchering scheme. If a pretty girl sends you a message out of nowhere and wants to send you her tatas and tells you she needs money to go visit her mom, I'm going to tell you guys right now, it's not real. You are not good looking enough. If you were, then somebody would come up to you on the street. And even if you are good looking, you're probably not that lucky. Now, there are other fraud schemes that have also been linked to huge scams like this where people end up like killing themselves. These types of extortion cases have mostly targeted teenagers. Early on in the second administration, this is the type of things that were bringing down the 764 and the 09A network because these satanic pedophiles operating all around the world, they would pretend to be a younger person with good intentions, meeting some disaffected teenager who just needed somebody to talk to. They would gain their trust, and then they would blackmail them and have them send nude and provocative pictures, and then force them basically to commit brutal acts upon their own bodies or against animals, sick satanic stuff. Victims of these call centers were tricked or trafficked into working in Myanmar. They get stuck in limbo at the compound inside the KK Park, which is a fraud factory, and it's also a human trafficking hub on the border with Thailand. Myanmar and Thailand and Myanmar. After this international crackdown, these compounds were found to be running by criminal gangs, and they were operated by the Karen Border Guard Force in Mayawadi, Myanmar. Now, some of these groups are definitely tied to human trafficking victims. They will be trafficked for labor. Scammers often entice these people with the promises of good income, lots of work, visas that lure them into the scam operations, and then they just get stuck and they're forced to conduct these scams by threat of beating or even torture. So the FBI partnered with Starlink, thank you Elon Musk, with using that to get geolocation data to to help identify the scammers who were actually using Starlink terminals to engage in this fraud. Through that partnership with Elon Musk and Starlink, they suspended more than 7,000 terminals in Myanmar. And the operation sprung out of a series of complaints from the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center going back to 2005. Over the course of that year, the IC3 received nearly 72,000 complaints detailing losses of more than $7.5 billion. That's related to not just cryptocurrency, but all types of fraud being committed by these call centers. Now, the FBI estimates those figures wildly underrepresent the actual losses. Think about how many people are victims of this stuff and then are just so despondent over the fact they've lost everything, or maybe they feel stupid and they don't want to come forward. Or when you try to report it, you call the wrong jurisdiction. Maybe the people that you talk to don't want to do anything about it. It's absolutely insane. This is one of the biggest markets. If you ever see like Indians or Bengalis online that are like flashing a lot of money, 9 times out of 10, they're probably engaging in this exact same type of thing. There are so many of these scam call centers, and in India, they are run like real companies. Like, they are businesses. They are licensed with the state. They are, fully legal with the government. But it's just that the activities they engage in are wholly illegal and absolutely amoral. So, an estimate from the United States Institute of Peace, which is rich, suggests that criminal syndicates steal approximately $64 billion per year. So Operation Blackout was the FBI's operation to go in and take these things down. They included at least 4 separate operations, including the aforementioned Prince Holding Group. There was another one called Operation Zephyr Exodus. Other operations include one we already mentioned, Operation Sand Dollar. They were targeting scam compounds in the Middle East and the UAE. You also had Operation Hao Chen. That was an investigation into the Tai Chang scam compound in Kayakut, Myanmar. This is an area controlled by the DKBA, the Karen Army. And the compound allegedly was connected to the Chinese criminal syndicates. There the FBI seized $30 million. That was tied to Tai Chang. There was also the Shunda compound takedown. That was a joint task force, which included both the FBI and partners in Thailand. That investigation led to the arrest of 2 subjects in Thailand and the seizure of a Telegram channel that was used to recruit forced labor into a Cambodian law enforcement impersonation scam. The FBI also enacted a proactive measure, which was called Operation Level Up, an initiative that identifies victims of cryptocurrency investment fraud and notifies them of scams. Throughout that operation, the FBI has already notified 8,935 victims, 77% of whom were unaware that they were being scammed. The notifications have prevented $562 million in losses. So sad to see this happening to people. All right, now continuing with a discussion on fraud. Heritage Action is a group that is connected to the Heritage Foundation. They have provided information and policy from their think tank for decades. They're conservative. They're the ones who put together Project 2025, which there was a fair amount of controversy about. And also today in President Trump's administration, there are more than a few people who were part of the Heritage Foundation, who were part of writing Project 2025, and they are now currently working inside the federal government for President Trump. We definitely talked about it on a number of occasions, but anyways, so Heritage Foundation, Heritage Action is now working on legislation to help make sure that these types of overarching scams that we see here in the United States that are now being busted up are unable to happen in the future. They've put together a package of 15 different anti-fraud bills that have been written by Heritage Action and that need to be implemented by Congress so that we can fully ensure, make sure that this stuff doesn't happen anymore. So Representative Keith Self introduced the Federal Program Identity and Fraud Protection Act of 2025. It's H.R. 6916. This bill prohibits individuals with a felony from receiving federal aid of any sort for 3 years. Pretty common sense. I don't have any problem with that. Representative Mike Kennedy has the Stop Child Care Funding Fraud Act, H.R. 7794. This one demands accountability for the misuse of funds being spent towards the Child Care and Development Block Grant Program. Again, very sensical. You've also got Representative Aaron Bean's bill, H.R. 4311, Delivering on Government Efficiency in Spending Act. This is crucial for the accountability of where federal spending is going. This allows us to have full transparency, much more transparency than we've gotten before. Representative Dave Taylor has H.R. 8028. That is the SNAP Fraud Reporting Act that requires the SNAP program to report fraud, make it available for the public so that we can take a look and see what's going on. Has to be reformed if we're going to make sure that people do not continue to abuse the system. Another one from Dave Taylor. The Deporting Fraudsters Act. We've spoken about this. H.R. 1958. That would ensure any illegal alien who steals has no re-entry hopes ever into the United States. We've also got the Child Care Payment Integrity and Fraud Accountability Act, H.R. 7720. Representative Mark Messmer, put this one forth. That'll make fraudulent payments classified as improper payments and crack down on state reporting of these payments directly to Health and Human Services. You've got Representative Glenn Grothman, launching H.R. 7721, the Combating Regulatory Abuse, Closing Known Deficiencies, and Overseeing Waste Nationwide Act, a.k.a. the Crackdown Act. This act would crack down on states who are exceeding a 5% improper payment rate threshold and require an HHS corrective action plan. So it encourages them to make sure that the money they're pushing out is not fake. Then there's H.R. 7722, the Child Care Integrity Monitoring Act, introduced by Representative Bob Onder. This bill would organize the 3-year monitoring cycle of the Care and Development Block Grant Program and require Health and Human Services to label states at high risk if they have repeated audit failures. You also have the Safeguarding Taxpayer Dollars in Child Care Act, H.R. 7723. That was launched by Representative Virginia Fox. That would help eliminate fraud present in child care and adult care food program and child care development fund program grants. No longer would fraudsters be able to use our kids to fund their fraud. Representative Joe Wilson introducing H.R. 7724, the No Waivers for Fraud Act. This would eliminate Health and Human Services' ability to give state sanctions when they fail to comply. This would ensure accountability and make sure the money doesn't keep flowing. Representative Michael Rulli's bill, H.R. 7725, the Stop Child Care Fraud Act, that would keep a closer eye on all state agencies involved in program oversight by requiring state plans. H.R. 7677, the Closing the Provider Fraud Gap Act. That is Representative Burgess Owens, who is, I believe, retiring. That would require the U.S. Government Accountability Office to provide a report on fraud prevention measures where providers are involved. We have also Representative Mary Miller initiating H.R. 7726, the No Funds for Repeat Child Care Violations Act. This would stop people who have engaged in fraud before of being able to come back and work in the field again. Another great anti-fraud bill from Representative Burgess Owens, H.R. 7892, the No Aid for Ghost Students Act of 2026, that investigates questionable student aid applications before federal money is distributed. Sounds like the Department of Education has already addressed that, but I'll give Burgess Owens some props. And then finally, the Student Aid Fraud Oversight and Accountability Act of 2026. That is from Representative Glenn Thompson. That would ensure that schools are being flagged for review if they have any possibly fraudulent students, because, of course, Americans should never be paying for people who don't exist to go to school. All right. Thank you very much to Heritage. Also, thank you to G. Fontes, who says the government-funded gang liaison program looking after their hoods sounds just like the Little Italy's Mulberry and Mott Street or 18th Avenue and Bensonhurst's mafia fixing problems for specific race-aligned civilians from calling the highly unwanted police presence from their neighborhoods. So all the illegal businesses can carry on without pause due to the law enforcement presence. I don't know anything about that, but I'll go ahead and look into it. All right, now, You may remember very recently, Soros-funded prosecutor in Minnesota, Mary Moriarty, charged yet another ICE agent, this time for the non-fatal shooting of a Venezuelan illegal alien that she claimed was legally in the United States. He was not. Well, this ICE agent was charged just very recently, and he was just arrested, looks like in Texas. So this took place back in January. ICE agent Christian Castro was charged with 4 counts of second-degree assault and 1 count of falsely reporting a crime. So ICE agents were involved in a shooting in Minneapolis as agents were going door to door looking to see if certain people were home because they were illegal and they weren't supposed to be there. Now, ICE agents got a shovel-wielding Venezuelan after he tried to assault federal law enforcement officers. This Venezuelan came at the officers with a shovel. ICE agents shot him in a leg. The little shit deserved it, and he's lucky to still be alive. So let's take a look. This is Mary Moriarty. First of all, this is the guy. Actually, there's 3 people here. Which one is the one who got shot? Okay, so we talked about this at the time. This was back in January. So you had Julio Cesar Sosa Solis. He's a criminal illegal alien from Venezuela, previously convicted for driving without a license and arrested for 2 counts of giving a false name to a peace officer. He was the subject of a targeted enforcement operation. He was released by Minnesota authorities before ICE could even lodge a detainer. Sosa Solis illegally entered the United States in August of 2022 under the Biden regime. That was him right here. And then next you have Alfredo Alejandro Ohorna, also an illegal alien from Venezuela. He illegally entered in May of 2023 under Biden. After he failed to show up for his immigration hearing, he was issued a final order of removal. And then finally, Gabriel Alexandro Hernandez Ledesma, another criminal illegal alien from Venezuela. He also illegally came in May of 2023, and the Biden administration marked this illegal alien as a non-enforcement priority. So the ICE agents show up to arrest one of these clowns, and then one of the other ones comes after ICE with a shovel and tries to stop them. And this is, I believe, yeah.
Wait, how old is the new hire?
I don't know, but he literally uses Excel.
Hi.
Okay, so this is Mary Moriarty. This is almost 5 minutes long. We're not going to listen to the whole thing, but I just want to show you in case you don't know who she is.
I'm Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty.
Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, the same one who lets Somali rapists off so that they can go and rape another kid the next day.
Our office has received inquiries from the public asking for information about what it would look like to charge a federal agent in Minnesota. The answer is complex. So to ensure that our community has accurate information, we've created this short video to provide an overview.
Just like with any other person charged with a crime in state.
Anyways, look at these people, like the vacant stare, the wide-eyed 50-yard stare every time. These people are not even human. Anyways, so Christian Castro, 52, ICE agent, was charged in North Minneapolis. He was arrested in Texas early this morning. He's, again, 4 counts of second-degree assault with a dangerous weapon and 1 count of falsely reporting a crime. Castro was arrested by the Department of Homeland Security Office of the Inspector General, Texas Rangers, and Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension agents in Hidalgo, Texas. HCAO says that the charges are likely to result in an attempt to remove his case to federal court. If this removal is granted by the judge, HCAO will still prosecute the case, and if it ends in conviction, it will not be eligible for a presidential pardon. I can't believe that they would even continue to prosecute this guy. He's a freaking ICE agent. He was doing his job. All right. Now, speaking of letting illegal aliens and sex abusers out so that ICE can't arrest them, and they are free to go rape and murder more, Governor Abigail Spanberger is now under intense heat. Her sanctuary policies have allowed an illegal alien rapist to be released. And can you guess what he did when he got out? Well, if you said rape another woman, then you would be absolutely correct. This was, again, A completely avoidable situation. Let's go ahead and check in with the locals.
Records showed me that he was arrested on May 19th in Fairfax County on 5 charges, including a felony. But only 3 days later, he was back on the street and allegedly assaulted a woman. So this is just a really concerning, a disturbing situation that we're telling you about this morning. Take a look here. The suspect on your screen, 25-year-old Cristobal Vasquez Sanchez. Arlington police say he inappropriately approached a woman in a parking garage stairwell about 10 days ago. Another person was there to step in and help her, and then he ran away before investigators found and arrested him 3 days later.
Andale.
So here's a look at his record I mentioned. I found 26 different charges total across Fairfax and Arlington, from other assaults to drug possessions and property damage, just to name a few. The most recent was 3 days before this alleged Arlington assault, where he was arrested for assault on an officer, which is a felony charge, but he was freed from custody, released on recognizance. So 7 News also learned yesterday that he is undocumented, and ICE had issued a detainer that Fairfax County officials did not honor. Here's what DHS told us. Sanctuary politicians released this criminal from jail back into Virginia communities. Vasquez Sanchez then went on to rack up charges for rape and sexual assault.
That's what happens when you have an illegal alien rapist murderer in your possession and you just don't want to give him to ICE. He gets out and then he goes and does the thing all over again. Really unfortunate. We have another case, this time a DUI, which led to the death of 4 young people, 4 promising American citizens. This illegal alien who had DACA status got drunk and went driving on the wrong side of the road. This was an arrest that took place on Tuesday. Charges related to driving under the influence and killing 4 young Americans in Oklahoma last Friday. 3 teenagers and 1 20-year-old were killed in the crash. They were identified as Kiersey Hickson, 20 years old, Quincy Jones, 19, and then 18-year-olds Hayalai Salazar and Brad Palmer. A vigil was held for the victims near El Reno High School, where 3 of the victims had graduated this past Monday night. More than 200 people gathered to mourn. The illegal alien, Michael Rosario Cruz, was living in the U.S. with DACA status. He arrived in 2015 during the Obama administration, as well as having a work authorization permit. Rosario Cruz was drinking in a local bar before he began driving westbound in the eastbound lanes of Interstate 40 in Canadian County, Oklahoma. Empty beer bottles littered the floor of his car. He did not have a prior criminal record at the time of the murders, except for the fact that he was a criminal illegal alien living here without real status in the United States. President Trump has rescinded DACA, if I'm not mistaken. The Trump administration has said that it's targeting the worst of the worst illegal aliens who have criminal records. Maybe it's time they just start going after all of the DACA recipients, because even though those people may not have criminal records, they're still illegals in the United States of America. Mass deportation activists like myself are critical of this approach. The government should not wait for illegal aliens to kill American citizens, or to drive drunk, or to murder children, or to kidnap little girls off of the bus before you finally go and find them. Of course, there are also Republicans who are pushing for amnesty. These are people who hate you and they hate the United States of America. Make no mistake about it. The Oklahoma Department of Public Safety's Tim Tipton said in a news conference, this murder took place with somebody who should have never been in this country, who was here illegally. Rosario Cruz now faces deportation with an active ICE detainer request. Our goal is that this person should never see freedom here again in the United States. The charges against the 27-year-old include the aforementioned 4 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of DUI causing great bodily injury, transporting an open container, possession of a firearm with an altered identification, which means he sounds like he scratched the serial number off, carrying firearms while under the influence, and driving the wrong way on a one-way road. I believe that we have coverage. I think it's important that, actually it's in the next tweet. Yeah, okay, this is where we will show the actual images of the young people who lost their lives. I find it really offensive when, first of all, when they don't want to show the picture of the criminal who committed the action which led to the death of an American. And I find it even more offensive when they don't show the Americans who died. I think that you need to first expose the person who committed the crime, and then second, you have to pay homage to the people who lost their lives. You have to pray for their souls, and you have to pray for their families, and we need to see them so that the impact of the crimes of these people are fully felt. It's one thing when you say some illegal killed some American kids. It's another thing when you're looking at those kids' pictures and you realize that their parents are never going to be able to kiss them goodnight, or never going to tell them to be home by midnight, who are never going to see them walk down the aisle, who are never going to hold their grandchildren. You got to see their faces.
4 lives were tragically lost Friday morning after a wrong-way driver hit their car head-on.
Oh,
12:30 a.m. A vehicle was traveling westbound in the eastbound lanes of I-40 near Check Hall Road.
20-year-old Kiersey Hickson, 19-year-old Quincy Jones, 18-year-old Haley Salazar, and 18-year-old Brad Palmer killed in the crash.
Strong-willed, very independent. She's my youngest and my baby. We've been very close since the day she's been born.
The driver, allegedly under the influence. Forewarned storm tracker Eric Dixon, narrowly avoiding the wrong-way driver too, capturing this video of the fire that erupted after the crash. Haley graduated in 2025. Quincy and Brad graduated this past Saturday. All taken too soon. 4 lives were...
Yeah, Spud Hill says Arena had a mural. It got graffiti over it. And then even worse, rather than erasing the graffiti, the pussies on the city council had the mural painted over because it was too inflammatory for the community. You know what? Screw them. Remember, never forget. All right, Lisa, I want to make sure you listen to this. We were talking about the plight of Afrikaners in South Africa last night. The plight of white people all over the continent of Africa, people who have lived there for hundreds of years, who can't simply go back to their original European countries because these people are citizens of the nations in which they currently live. The plight of Afrikaners in South Africa has been touched upon for years here on this program, and when President Trump came into office for his second term, he very quickly announced that we were going to start fast-tracking the asylum claims of Afrikaners, and there was a number of loads of them that came over here. One thing that is really tragic is that simply because these people are white, they haven't received asylum status or refugee status in any other country. Lisa was saying last night, why don't they just leave? Why don't they leave South Africa? And it's not as easy as that. You've got people who have been living in South Africa for generations, 9 generations of family members that have lived on the land, who have farmed it, who have cultivated the property. They're connected to it. The dirt and the dust is in their veins. They are South Africans. And where are they going to go? They don't have anywhere to go. And if they get their farms taken, and if a farmer gets his wife and children murdered by South African blacks, or if their animals are slaughtered, or if they're just kicked off of their land and they don't have access to money, how are they even going to get to another country? How are they even going to be given status as a refugee? Because most nations don't accept them as refugees. They don't believe that there is a genocide of Afrikaners taking place. But I will be the first to tell you 100% there is. So President Trump has just signed another executive order to accept an additional 17,500 Afrikaner refugees. And the government of the ANC is not very happy about it. They say that us accepting these 17,500 Afrikaner refugees is somehow attacking black people. Let me ask you a question. How is that attacking black people? How is accepting these people into our country so that they're not raped and murdered, how is that attacking black people? South African blacks, they got the whole country. They get to run the entire thing. It's not the fault of the Afrikaners who are being murdered that the country is being mismanaged into oblivion. Has nothing to do with it. So the offer for these Afrikaners to come here, this represents another 10,000 Afrikaner refugees. We've already brought in 6,000 of them. So the cap has been raised to 17,500. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there for additional Afrikaners to apply for refugee status if they want to. You've also got several patriotic Afrikaner organizations appealing to President Trump, asking for help to have them stay in their ancestral homes. You know, like I said, these are people who have lived in this country for generations. They know no other place. To give up their homeland is something that certain people simply don't want to do. So on Tuesday, President Trump announced that he was increasing that refugee cap because of an unforeseen emergency refugee situation. He signed the executive order, increased the ceiling to 17,500, and he blamed the South African government for the recent increases in the incitement of racially motivated violence. This is Presidential Determination number 2026-14. As of May 21st, 2026, finds an unforeseen emergency refugee situation that now exists due to recent increases in the incitement of racially motivated violence on the part of the government of South Africa. I hereby determine that the admission of the United States of Afrikaners from South Africa in response to this emergency is justified by the grave humanitarian concerns, and that an increase in the ceiling of 17,500 is warranted. So Afrikaner X-Page Volstadt reports that 500 Afrikaners leaving from Johannesburg International Airport or Tambo every other day to come to the United States. There's only so many that can fly out of the country because there's only so many flights. And I've even seen there are charities in South Africa that were supposedly facilitating the removal of these Afrikaners to come to the United States. And so they will have people like get rid of their homes, sell off all their belongings, and then they show up to fly out, and then they're just told that their flights are canceled, and they're basically left homeless. So the South African Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Crispin Feary, denied President Trump's accusations of systemic persecution of Afrikaners despite years of documented abuse and horrific farm murders. We've shown many of these things here before. AfriForum recorded 184 farm attack incidents and 29 farm murders in 2025. The number of farm attacks increased slightly from 176 in 2024 to 184 in 2025, while the number of farm murders actually declined from 37 in 2024 to 29 in 2025. Farm attacks are excessively cruel, and torture is committed. Women and children are raped. Animals are killed. Elderly are oftentimes they are taken and they are brutally tortured and murdered in front of each other. Attacks often employ military tactics, overcoming security fences and other barriers with heavy-duty equipment like radio jammers. The ANC government has also instituted a regimen of racial quotas. It's called the Black Economic Empowerment Quota that effectively shut white South Afrikaners out of the labor market, and they've also taken steps to eradicate the unique Afrikaner culture from education and public monuments. The ANC also continues to press for land expropriation, which is land theft without compensation, and tolerates squatters illegally occupying private property. South African Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, attacked President Trump and the movement here in the South African Parliament on May 27th and said that we were attacking black people. We know that in the U.S., the MAGA movement is very clear to attack black people. We know what they stand for. They stand against human rights. Ronald Lamola has previously attacked President Trump, accusing him of white supremacy over the U.S. boycott of the G20 summit in Johannesburg back in November. The U.S. Bureau of African Affairs responded, pointing out that thousands of South Africans are fleeing to America to escape your government's left-wing policies. Unemployment remains at 33%, while you and your corrupt government elites get rich while promoting race-based laws and chanting "kill the Boer." If caring about your own citizens is MAGA, South Africa might want to give it a try. Now, let me actually show you a clip here that I thought was totally appropriate. So I've told you about Frank Zanu before. Frank Zanu is an African intellectual who has often talked about the plight of African people on the African continent. And he always makes great points. And in this clip, they're talking about the inability of Haiti to basically do anything with their own country. It was hundreds of years, like the exact same time, basically. I think like 200 years ago, Haiti gained their independence. That was 50 years after the United States. In the last 250 years, look what America has become. In the last 200 years, look at what Haiti has become. And then compare and contrast that to what the Dominican Republic has become. Look at every other colonialized nation around the world since they've been given their independence and see what they've been able to accomplish. Do the same thing and look at South Africa and see what South Africa has devolved into. Let's go ahead and hear this conversation with Frank Zanu and this young man who I believe is a Haitian citizen.
Like, look at the Dominican Republic, right? It's the best thing because we're on the same island, right? What did they do, right? Because I think back in the 60s or 50s, they say that Haiti had a bigger GDP than DR back then. But then something happened where Haiti went backwards and then DR went up, and now the two countries are unrecognizable. What did the Dominican Republic do correctly? Because I feel like in Haitian culture, we want to do the it's like, oh, we're not going to take the same path as the Dominicans. You know, we feel like some of them have sold out their country for tourism. But at the same time, like, our people are still fleeing our country to go to their country. What could they do that we probably should learn from them? I mean, me saying that, I'm probably offended a lot of people.
You said, what did DR do different? They didn't do anything different. I like to look at things and apply my critical thinking to it. Spanish people, right? Mm-hmm. They are like Arabs. When they colonize any environment, they're not puritanic. They would like to co-produce with the locals.
Oh, like mixed?
That's correct.
Portuguese too, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
The people who think they're puritanic are the English, German, and French. When they colonize any place, especially Africa, okay, they think they are more pure, puritanic.
We can't mix with them, yeah.
Spanish colonized the last week to remember, the DR area. So they sleep with the locals, and the locals agree to breed with them. The French colonized Haiti. That's the last one, right? So I don't think they touch many of the locals. Mm-hmm. Should I leave it for you to conclude why now the two people are different? What did you think I said?
It sounds like you're saying that because the Dominicans are more mixed,
yes.
They have a different style of thinking.
Yeah.
A different style of thinking was incorporated in their side of the island than the black side of the island.
Yes.
Okay. I was thinking more like with the Dominican Republic, their country is not as rebellious as.
But why is it not?
You know, I think they made a decision. They said after.
No, that's too much credit.
But for me, overall, I view the DR as a country that decided, you know what, we're going to move forward.
What made them to make that decision and Haitians wouldn't make that decision? How did they decide? They had a conference?
The thing is, they were both at one point in the same position.
No,
right? So,
I hear that thing all the time. It's bogus.
No, but Haiti did have a higher GDP in like the 40s.
High GDP sometimes is just numbers on the paper.
Okay.
You don't want to accept what I'm describing to you. So let me ask you, okay, hold on.
I'm not really into racial, like my thing is this, right? I like to view things as like people, one person. Okay.
Then my friend, you have a problem. So let me ask you, name one single place occupied by white people on Mother Earth, and it looks like Haiti.
I can't even say Eastern Europe. I can't because even that's more advanced, even though they call that the third world.
That's correct.
Of Europe.
Name one place on Mother Earth occupied by black people, and that place looks like...
Dubai?
Yes. Okay.
It doesn't exist.
So what more do you need? The Dominicans didn't sit down in a conference and say, hey guys, we're going to decide from today, this is how we're going to go. I just told you that I believe, and I've seen it also, that perhaps we should begin to think about it. Why is it that the places where always the invading force, if it's of a different color, if it happens to, it changes everything. So you don't think there's anything in the DNA. When you say that decided, it looks to quite a credit given to people. I believe strongly that whoever co-bred with them to change the entire race is what is responsible for that. We are trying to find a boogeyman to explain why we are, quote, behind, which we are not. We are just who we are. You talk about Singapore, you are comparing up apples and oranges. Haiti were a bunch of unwilling people taken from their own root, where they lost their language, they lost their history, they lost their culture, they lost identity. You are asking a ghost to build a country. The leader who can make Haitians change and make Haiti look like Dubai, he should show me on earth where a bunch of people harvested from their original environment and they were poured somewhere, yet they build the country up. Where is that?
Wait, so the Dominican Republic, weren't they brought from Africa too?
But I told you what happened to them. Yes. There is a threshold for which any scientific research have to stop and say, no, 25 years. And you have to change course. Haiti is 200 years. You're already dead. I'm just speaking to ghosts. With that?
Yes, Frank.
Frank Zanu is brilliant, and he's honest. You know, it's really refreshing to see someone talk about these subjects. And for him, as a black man, to, you know, have this concept fully realized and to challenge other people in the black community to really think about it. Because so many people, they're caught up in this, it's colonialism. The white people did it to us. Well, you've had independence for, you know, how many years? 200 years, decades and decades and decades, and yet still your country is unable to move forward. Your country is unable to achieve the same things that the colonizers achieved when they were here. Why is that? The colonizers handed you a fully fledged and developed country, and you took it and you turned it into a bomb war zone. Absolutely tragic, 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 tragic. So in order to change your circumstances, you have to change your mental frame of reference, okay? And you have to realize that it's not all the fault of the colonizers. Perhaps there is something inherent in the culture which has led you to the place that you're at right now. If I were you guys, I would follow Frank Zanu, and you can find him on X, but his YouTube account is where he has these long-form conversations with people, and it's great. I need to also give a big happy birthday to S2G109. She says, today is my birthday, and I've been listening while doing chores so I can celebrate my cousin Margaret's 102nd birthday tomorrow. That is amazing. Thanks for keeping me up to date on the news. Happy birthday to you, S2G109, and happy birthday to Margaret as well. Thank you so much. All right. Now, continuing, let me say thank you so much to Filter Dog, who says, did E. Jean Carroll write the Law & Order episode? No, she just stole it from the Law & Order episode. Thank you to Sean Joe for the shades and the cookie. Thank you also once again to Esther, who says, I hope Lisa digs the shorter beard. I do. Zach, the most interesting man, delivering the goods, looking good in Freddie Prinze Puerto Rican accent. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. I appreciate that, brother. Okay. All right. Now, moving on. All right. So, we're going to talk about a couple of other instances of illegal alien crimes. This is an illegal alien who was just sentenced to 10 years for the sex trafficking of children in Omaha, Nebraska. This man is from India. Two teenagers, 15 and 16, were trafficked to the American Hotel from out of state to be sold for commercial sex. And these two minor victims reported that their traffickers had ordered them to have sex with hotel staff in exchange for a reduced room rate, and they threatened to evict them if they refused. Two hotel employees paid the trafficker to have sex with one of the minors, while a third employee had sex with the other. Patel is the man in question. He was an employee at the American. He admitted to taking money from the hotel to pay the traffickers for sex with one of the victims. Hotel staff then allowed the traffickers and the minors to remain at the hotel for several days. During that time, the traffickers posted online advertisements for commercial sex and arranged for paid sex acts involving the underage victims. Those minors said they were given very little food and they felt they had no choice but to comply with the traffickers' demands. 5 others have also been criminally charged in this case. Mr. Patel, good riddance. All right, now, this is the situation at Delaney facility in Newark, New Jersey. Now, this, I believe, is from last night or just the night before, but things were bad for a couple of days. You know, I mean, it kind of seemed like ICE was almost allowing these people to get as bold as they possibly could, to thinking that they could get away with this stuff. And that has sort of changed today. But during this clip right here, you can hear one of the Antifa members who is protesting tell the ICE officials that he's going to kill him and his entire family. That's illegal. And his face is on camera. There have been at least 9 people from this crowd that have been arrested thus far. It's probably going to end up being more after this. But it seems like essentially they set a honeypot. They set a trap for these people, and they allowed them to incriminate themselves so that they could then be arrested and indicted. Take a listen. Also, this guy just got his foot run over by this giant truck. That's very satisfying. Let me go back first of all. Oh, look, you can see his foot gets stuck in between the two tires, and he gets sucked in. Probably broke his ankle, hopefully. But I do just want to show you the guy that is getting hit by the baton right here. He's the one who tells the agents that he's going to kill him and his entire family. Get him, boys.
Kill your whole fucking family! Your whole fucking family's dead! Come on! Children, your wife, all dead! Put your... My boy... I have your face, motherfucker! You're dead! Dead! Your voice to back up and put your stick down, because I'm about that life. You say come on? You say come on, right? Yeah, small now. Put your stick down, tell your voice to back up. I'm about that life, my boy. I'm about that life. I'm about that life. Yeah, yeah. Don't, excuse me? What are you doing? Do you see what y'all...
Oh, big man. Now, here's the other thing. The other reason why I think that this was a honeypot. Because they just announced the investigation into the people that are funding these things. And then yesterday, Scott Bessent said that they're in the midst of an investigation into the people who are funding this stuff. They're going after the NGOs. So I think that all of these people who showed up at this facility to engage in this paid protest, they're all mapped. They've got all of them. And so they're tracing all of this money back. I think we're probably going to see a huge push for arrests and for prosecutions here. Now, as Filter Dog said earlier, the special response team was deployed earlier today. These are the guys who you do not want to find out from. They're in full tactical gear. Homeland Security Investigations is now also on scene. Let's take a look. All right. Now, Greg Bavino is going to be speaking out at a re-immigration summit in Portugal. This is highly notable because this mass migration phenomenon began in Europe. It was a test case in Europe to see what they could force on the citizens of European countries before beginning the same sort of thing en masse here. Now, we had people coming across the border illegally for a long time, but the caravans and the huge groups of people didn't start until after it was already a huge thing. And, of course, they said it was because of climate change, or we deserved it because we were involved in conflicts in other nations around the world. But it's obviously a much deeper issue than that. All of this has been planned. All of it has been paid for. And it's all part of the sort of generalized mongrelization of every nation on Earth. It is so much easier to control people if you're all stateless, if you all are from a nation that doesn't have borders, if your national sovereignty means absolutely nothing. I hope that Greg Bovino comes back into this administration, because I can think of no one better to lead the mass deportation operation than this man right here. He is great. I love this guy. So he is now being confirmed to take the stage at the 2026 Reimmigration Summit in Portugal. That'll be this Saturday. He's going to be sharing lessons from the front lines in his time during the largest scale interior deportation operation we've ever run here in the United States. Now, the event is the second edition of the Reimmigration Summit. It was first held in Milan, Italy last year. It brings together politicians, activists, intellectuals, patriots from across Europe, also from America and other Western nations. They're hoping to confront and eventually do away with the existential crisis of unchecked mass immigration and chart a path forward by employing reimmigration. Bovino, the retired Border Patrol commander at large who became the public face of President Trump's enforcement sweeps in cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, and Minneapolis, he's bringing some real-world advice and experience. Speaking to the Gateway Pundit, Bovino said, "I was honored to be invited to speak at the Reimmigration Summit in Porto regarding my experiences over the past year conducting large-scale reimmigration enforcement in the United States. Martin Sellner, one of the architects of the European reimmigration effort, saw similarities in the problems facing Europe and the U.S., and as we talked, we realized those problems could potentially be tackled collectively. I'll talk about the U.S. experience. Information is power. Mass deportations in the U.S. and repatriations in Europe are essential in saving both cultures. I'm honored to share insight with this motivated group." Now, he actually stopped to speak with a fan as he was on his way to the summit. I believe we have some video of that right here. This is at Newark Liberty International Airport. I wonder if he stopped by the detention center there, Delaney. They're waiting for him as he gets off the plane.
Sorry, in Porto. And I just was on Twitter.
Hi, nice to meet you, brother. What's your name again?
Yeah, let's do a photo.
He's such a gentleman. I love this guy. He's so down to earth. Anyways, there's going to be a bunch of people there. That would be super cool to attend. Let me say thank you very much to ZBM. My South African friend told me once a story about two farmers. A white mom and her son were brutally beaten, tortured, and were tied while their heads were lowered into boiling water. It's the wild, wild west there. Yes, it certainly is. Principled Enigma says, some of my best friends have been black people, and some of them will be the first to tell you that all the blacks are their own worst enemies when it comes to bigotry. ZBM says, only worse because they were very much outgunned and outnumbered, but they have had a Walmart open up there, so that's one plus for them. And then G. Fontes says, if FBI's SRT comes to your home or business, expect to replace all openings, meaning doors and windows. That's after you can even reach a human on the outside. Just that can be a tough task. Yes, it will. All right. Now, as these leftist NGOs and cities such as Charlotte, North Carolina, are pushing to protect the type of scum that we've been highlighting in the last portion of the show, they're also, of course, stealing money. Now, in the city of Charlotte, they put together a $100,000 fund for illegal migrants that were impacted by last year's Operation Charlotte's Web. And exactly $0 were passed out to any of these illegal aliens. I don't know if that's because they all left town or because the city is corrupt, but let's listen.
0 families helped by the $100,000 was the last thing they expected.
You know, good for the initiative that can help some families. That is not enough. That's absolutely insulting.
Manolo Betancourt was on the front lines during Operation Charlotte's Web. He says 6 months after Customs and Border Protection came to the city, he, like so many others, is still struggling financially.
What, because there's no more illegals in the city? Nobody's coming to your bakery? Put an ad on Facebook or something.
I don't have money for next week. Next week I have payroll, rent, and my credit card. Everything needs to be paid.
The city of Charlotte pledged $100,000 to households directly impacted by the operation. Jamila Espinosa with the Latin American Coalition tried to help people get the money they needed.
What about the American families who are victims of those illegal alien criminals who were allowed to stay here, be protected by the local police at the behest of the elected officials in these sanctuary jurisdictions? What about them? Did anybody think to put together a fund to help them? Because certainly there's probably no money coming from victim compensations funds. I would imagine that Irina Zarutska's family got absolutely nothing after she got punctured, 8-10 times by that crazy nutcase on the train.
We would receive families and then feed that information to crisis assistance, determine that these families were likely eligible or had been affected during that period of time, and then they were the lead agency that would screen.
The requirements? You had to be a City of Charlotte resident, have a valid picture ID, and have valid Social Security documentation for the adult applying for funding. People also had to meet the income eligibility requirement and fill out a form attesting that the household experienced a loss of income while the operation was underway in November.
So if they had a valid Social Security, that sounds like this was a plan that was designed to help American citizens. I'm very interested to keep going because the idea that I'm getting here is that Americans were not impacted by the efforts of Operation Charlotte's Web. The only people who were impacted by Operation Charlotte's Web were the illegal scumbags that were present unlawfully in the United States of America. But let's continue.
You're really in need and you're in crisis mode. It's sometimes very difficult and challenging to document all the things that they are requiring you. And it just wasn't as accessible.
In the end, the city of Charlotte says only 3 eligible households were identified and ended up receiving help from Crisis Assistance Ministries. The $100,000 was redistributed to other housing initiatives.
Oh, so they just ended up funneling it into other NGOs. So, okay. So they virtue signaled. They couldn't find any real Americans who were affected. And then they said, you know what, rather than doing anything else, we might as well just put it into NGOs that we're probably going to have come back into our pockets, I think.
Disappointment and disheartening because we saw the impact in the community. The Latin American Coalition, Our Bridge did food drives because people were unable to leave their homes to go to work, and in tandem then they could not even afford groceries.
So what we know is that a lot of the families that were in need were not eligible.
Big surprise
to participate.
City Council member J.D. Meswera-Arias had just been elected when the immigration operation began. He says there needs to be other options in place to help people if this ever happens again.
I think if we had an office designated to international affairs, we wouldn't be seeing these issues, particularly because we needed to identify, for me, what I would have done differently is not earmark the money for assistance to individual families, but earmark the money to the organizations, the legal 501c3s, 501c4s on the ground that were doing the work.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care. Let me tell you, we don't care.
Okay, so it sounds like they would rather just have the money go back to the nonprofits, the scamming nonprofits. Okay, well, either way, glad to know that money didn't go to help any of those people. Tullamore thank you for the $20 rant. Says, Zach, thank you for another wonderful week of coverage. Love cracking a cold friendly after work and catching your show. Have a drink on me, amigo. Yes, sir, there we go. I will raise my Trump thermos up to you, sir, and take a sip of my cold, purified water. All right. I would like to show you one more story. This is a success story coming out of Washington, D.C., Columbus Circle. If anybody has ever been to Columbus Circle in Washington, D.C., you were probably there and you thought to yourself, holy shit, how is this the capital city of the United States of America? Looks like something is seen out of Paris, France, with a bunch of dirty hobos hanging off of it, people pissing in the fountain. Well, It has now been completely restored. The fountain is open, and Secretary Duffy has announced a $465 million grant to rejuvenate Union Station. Take a look at this. I want you guys to see here. This is what Columbus Circle used to look like, and this is not even as bad as it was. There's graffiti. There's human excrement thrown at it. You can see it's dirty. The marble looks gross. You got homeless scumbags that are sleeping there in front of it, probably getting free drugs from the nonprofits. And then here is Columbus Circle today. Look at that. What a wonder. So a couple of power washings do when you've got some people who care about the way your capital looks. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, Columbus Fountain in front of Washington, D.C.'s Union Station is flowing again, thanks to the Trump administration's efforts to re-beautify the Capitol. Sean Duffy announced that grant. He said it's going to fast-track critical structural repairs to the building, things like a roof. Fixing the roof is something you might want to do. You got to enhance the passenger concourses, the Amtrak lounge, and the ticketing experience. We're going to maximize the station's revenue potential with retail, with parking, with office spaces, with digital signage, and a lot more. We're going to improve security, and we're going to invest in family-friendly infrastructure. Because who wants to catch a train in a dimly lit drug den like you have all over New York City?
In our effort to follow the president's call to make D.C. beautiful and great again, we are announcing that we are given a grant from DOT to Union Station for $465 million.
Can you see the fountain flowing back here? I mean, this is just, I was shocked to learn that it had been 20 years since the water flowed there. When I walked by it and I saw what it looked like, I was like, this is a shithole. Like, I can't believe this is D.C. Look at how beautiful. Oh, my God. Look at that. This looks like those pictures that you see in the Tartaria videos. Okay, like back when they built these things and they cared about the way it looked, and having pride in your work, and building beautiful things. Like, we don't build beautiful things anymore, and we haven't maintained these beautiful things in so long. Just look how pretty it is. Absolutely incredible. Yes, and then here is the ribbon cutting ceremony. We don't need to watch that, but and here's another thing. I'm gonna give some props to Michigan. The train station in Detroit. Oh my gosh, this was a beautiful building, Michigan Central Station. For years, it has essentially just been an abandoned blight on the city of Detroit. People would go in there, urban explorers taking pictures. There was graffiti all over it. All the windows were broken out. The entire place looked like a dump. And now they have rebuilt Michigan Central Station. It is gorgeous on the inside. They have completely renovated. They've put in new stone carvings. I never thought that I would see this again in Detroit. And it is absolutely stunning. They are using it as well. Yeah, they wanted to erase the past of the world that we used to live in here, where we built things in America and we took pride in the way our country looked, before they just started letting anybody in who was going to come here and just take a shit on your front lawn. Look at how gorgeous Michigan Central Station is now. If you haven't yet, go on YouTube and go look for some of the urban exploring videos of Michigan Central Station so that you can see how bad it was. I thought that this would never happen. I thought that they were just going to have to tear this place down. But the fact that they have completely revitalized it, and look at the yard, all of the land around it. They took all of this and they have taken it from a blight, a source of decay and death and destruction, and they have rebuilt it and brought it back from the brink. And I never thought I would see this in Michigan. It's absolutely incredible. Got to give them props for that. Yeah, Ford is actually the one who is behind making this beautiful. And they put a lot of money into it. They're going to have, I believe, they've got office space there, and I think they have sort of like a an office that is doing forward thinking work on cars, and let's make some cool cars again. Why not? All right, Henry Ford. Yeah, look up Henry Ford's Henry Ford's author credits if you don't know about it. All right, let me say thank you very much to Sean Joe for 2 more cookies. Thank you to Judy the Lady Pug for a cookie. Thank you to Sean Joe for the cookie. Thank you to Darla, who says, down to cookie crumbs. But I love you and Lisa and these shows. Chat is always so much fun. Much love to all, and happy birthday to JFK Sr. I didn't know it was JFK Sr.'s birthday. Mr. President, we salute you. And then thank you to Sean Joe for 1 final cookie. I do appreciate you guys. Let me just remind you, I had someone message me and ask me a question about the Big C, things that we've talked about here on the channel for the Big C. We've talked about a number of different things, but one of those things that I will frequently point to is B17, Lamigdal, bitter raw apricot seeds. You can go to rncstore.com. Actually, I need to get my notes here so that I can tell you exactly where to go. rncstore.com/RP78, and you will get 10% off everything you order from rncstore.com. And if you go and get a bundle, you're going to get a discount, and then you'll get my 10% discount on top of that. Everything is made in the United States of America. If you want to do some research related to B17, if you are facing a diagnosis that maybe has scared you or is threatening the health of a family member, I think that you should definitely look into this. They have a whole bunch of different products besides just the bitter apricot seeds and the B17 supplements that you can take. They have a bunch of different things related to apricot products. So you should definitely check that out. rncstore.com/RP78. And then also my friend Jordan over here at ConsciousStrength.net. ConsciousStrength.net. Use the code RP78 again to get 10% off. But this is where I get my methylene blue. There's a bunch of other stuff that Jordan offers, but these are, this is an American supplement company. And of course, Jordan is a good friend of mine. Iodine is also something that I take on a daily basis, in addition to the methylene blue. And of course, my friends over at Oneness Drops, onenessdrops.com/redpill78. When you go there and use my code REDPILL78, you'll get 15% off their chlorine dioxide water purification kits. Comes in a number of formulations. Water is life. If you don't have the ability to make clean, fresh drinking water, then you will not live very long. But they also have mullein extract for your lung health, soursop extract for cellular regeneration, and DMSO. I am a huge fan of DMSO. DMSO is something that you can use in conjunction with a whole host of other products. Like I have a CBD salve that I will put on when I have aches and pains, but I put the DMSO on first because DMSO is a carrier. And so you put the DMSO on, it'll dry very quickly, and then you can put whatever else on there, and it will bring the good stuff all the way in so that it will directly act upon whatever it is that is ailing you. But DMSO is a product that I cannot recommend to people enough. There's also studies about DMSO being used for people who have just had a stroke. For stroke and Alzheimer's, people are getting intravenous DMSO from their doctor. Let me say that first. And people are recovering after they've had a serious stroke, like going from not being able to move, being paralyzed on one side, to finally very quickly healing themselves. Jersey Talks has just rated the stream. Jersey Talks, sir, thank you very much for sending people over. We are just actually about to end the show, but I do appreciate you, and I can hope that maybe you can come back another time in the future. I'll go ahead and check out your channel. Sure does mean a lot. I also need to say thank you so much to a couple of the folks over here on Rumble. First of all, Climber63, my friend, thank you very much for that $100 Rumble rant. Says, Zach, I love your show and I watch every day. My wife and I would like to buy you and Lisa dinner. God bless, from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Sir, thank you to you and your wife. Lisa and I really do appreciate it. The generosity cannot be overstated. Means a lot to me. Thank you very much. Also, G. Fontez, another stalwart from the chat, says those two had close to $50,000 smiles while talking to the press about the program that failed to help Americans, quote, in need. That's right, because it was never meant to help Americans. And then Anarchist Owl, oh, what's up? Good to see you, buddy. He says, thoughts on Tartaria mudflood. I know you've done shows on it, but it's hard to find them. I'm just curious. I think there's something there. Sorry for the light tip. Cali's expensive. It's all right, friend. I appreciate it. So it's it's a much more complicated issue than me going into it right now. Let me just say this. I think that the world has undergone a series of resets at various times in the past, and that advanced technology and knowledge has certainly been lost when those things have happened. In terms of what the timeline is, I can't tell you that. But I think that time and information and history has been lost. And there are some things that people attribute to Tartarian civilization that I think are off base. Other things I think are, definitely on base. And that's why I say it's a complicated issue. But I will, if you find the Tartaria stuff, that's definitely going to be on the Baseless Conspiracies, what is it? The Baseless Conspiracies playlist. Also, if you or somebody else that watches the show wants more information on alternative or holistic alternative treatments for cancer or other things like that, if you go to my Rumble channel, there's a playlist for those holistic and naturalistic treatments, and you can find that there. That includes me and my guests talking about a whole host of different things, which includes B17, red light therapy, methylene blue, the Hoxie method, yes, and the list goes on and on. So I would definitely say that. Also, if you want to know anything about any of the sponsors on the program, you can find all of that in the description below this video. Thank you for your support. Hope you have a great weekend. Good luck. God bless. I'm going to go have dinner with my wife. Peace. We'll see you next time. Oh, and I just see that VR6 Moore has rated the stream. That was our friend up there at Jersey Talks. Jersey Talks, thank you for the raid.